Committee on Thursday, 17th of January. Lucy, can we have Sederunt and apologies, please?
Good morning, everyone. We have 16 members present. We are quorate. And so far I have apologies from Katie Hagman. Do I have any other apologies to note? Councillor Giusti and Councillor Tate and Councillor Crothers are not present, but perhaps might be along later. And Councillor Blake?
Councillor Giusti and Councillor Crothers are running late. They will be here. Councillor Tate is an apology.
Noted, thank you.
Declarations of interest, members. Andy?
It's just item 5. I am one of the objectors, I actually know personally, but I've had no contact with her regarding this, so I'm quite happy to sit in the room.
Okay, any other members? John Campbell.
Thank you. Item 6, I was at the Lorburn Community Council when discussions about the Catherine Street play park I took no part in that discussion, so I'll remain in the room.
Okay, and I have a declaration of interest. Oh, Councillor Murray. Okay, I have a declaration of interest in agenda item 4, Land East of Queen's Road, Sanquhar. I have had what maybe describe as an exchange with an objector. I also have a very close friend who owns a unit adjacent to the proposed southern access, and I have met with the applicant in my home. So in that case, I intend to declare an interest in the interests of my own personal integrity and leave the room. If there are no other declarations of interest, go to agenda item 3, minute of a previous meeting on 6th of December. Lucy, if you can take us through the process for today, please.
The Planning Applications Committee will consider each application in turn as detailed on the agenda. The case officer or other appointed officer will make a short presentation addressing the determining issues accompanied by digital images. Any late information, amendments or corrections will be reported at this time. Members may ask questions of officers following the presentation on points of clarification. The Chairman has been provided with a list of eligible representatives who have registered to speak at this meeting within the period specified in Council policy. No other persons will be allowed to speak. The Chairman will individually invite those who have registered in advance to speak to make their presentation, after which they may be questioned by the committee members. No questions may be asked of members. The order of eligible parties being heard will be as follows: third parties objecting to an application, third parties supporting an application, statutory consultees objecting to an application, elected members of Dumfries and Galloway Council who are not members of the Planning Committee. Such members should withdraw from the committee chamber after making their presentation, applicants or their agents. Representatives have been placed in alphabetical order, and a copy of the public speaking list is available from the committee officer taking notes of our proceedings. Presentations will be strictly limited to 3 minutes per person, excepting for national and major developments, which by their very nature are more complex, where the time limit will be 5 minutes. The Chairman of the committee will ask you to come to a conclusion if you take too long. Representatives are encouraged to use the time allotted to clarify any points they consider material and address the determining issues. Certain matters are not normally planning considerations and will not be taken into account by the Council when deciding on a planning application. Representatives should not raise any new matters without explaining why they were not raised earlier with the case officer. Please do not repeat what is in the report, as members will have already read the report. After all the representations have been heard, the meeting is then in formal session, and no members of the public may address the committee from the public gallery. The Planning Applications Committee will then proceed to determine the application, or, where appropriate, agree a recommendation to be made to full Council, who will determine the application.
Thank you, Lucy. Before I leave the room, there is one piece of process that we have to consider. One of the registered objectors has arrived with all of his information on a tablet. and is unable to access the internet because we run a closed internet in this building. So to assist that objector, we can either give the objector time to go and transfer the information he has electronically to a member of the staff and it'll be printed off for him, defer until such times as he can prepare a different means of presenting to the committee, or proceed and ignore the fact that particular individual does not have access to the internet and therefore cannot deliver the way he would like to. Or we can ask Lucy to check with governance and see what best advice from council officers is. David?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm happy to switch the order around. I would have thought he could have created a personal Wi-Fi hotspot using a telephone, but if it's a question of transferring the files.
Ian?
I think in the interest of fairness, Chairman, we should make every effort we can to allow the person to present in the way they're used to or want to present, if possible.
Okay, I'll just get Lucy to clarify. Lucy?
I was just also wondering whether it's worth, there's quite a number of speakers that have come along today and taken the time out of their day. I'm just wondering if it's worth, you would consider maybe hearing everybody, but perhaps if it isn't possible to transfer the information, maybe we could hear him at the next meeting. Would that be a consideration?
No, that would be a confusion, I would suggest. And the other point with that is the objector will want to hear what every other objector is saying, so he'll want to be present at the whole duration of the meeting. Ian?
I wonder if we could, if we could make every effort in order to help the person get everything organised, but if we hear the other people first, and if he's not ready at that point, we make a determination whether to proceed, adjourn, defer, or whatever we're going to do. We might end up a site visit. I don't know. I have no idea what the thrust of the committee's decision will be today. Without overcomplicating it, Chairman.
So we're becoming more complicated. Andy Ferguson and then Ivor Hislop.
My suggestion is we just get the objector to email a designated officer and get it printed off so that we get on. Even if, I don't know if it's the first speaker in or the last speaker, but as long as it's within that grouping, it would actually give them time to go, we get it done, get it printed off and let the thing go ahead as normal. We should be as open and as accommodating as possible here, I would suggest.
Ivor?
Chair, I take it's the first one that we're on about. If that's the case, as in the first application, could we not take the other ones and then come back to that, and that'll give time to actually either resolve the issue or otherwise?
I think that was the very first suggestion that was made. We just seem to be trying to complicate it a wee bit, Archie.
Chair, I mean, objectors in the past or participants in the past have sent slideshows to the officers to put on, and I'm just wondering if we're setting a precedent here. I think we really need to get governance advice on this. I'm happy to take a paper copy of the thing as long as that is in line with what's happened in the past. Previous presenters have actually forwarded any presentation to the officers to be as part of their objection, and it's on the slideshow. So I just want to make sure that we're right in what we're actually doing.
I think we might come back round to what we're trying to do anyway. We'll take agenda item 5, beginning of the meeting, agenda item 6 next, agenda item 4 would be the last agenda item. In fact, we can deal with the other information from an appeal and then do agenda item 4, the very last item. In the meantime, we can get governance advice, and it might also be useful in the future to advise any objector that they don't have access to Wi-Fi and that they cannot expect to arrive here and present Wi-Fi. So if we can delegate an officer to help the objector to get the information to us, I think that would be a useful way forward.
2 minutes. Tracy's going to try and get him onto her. Try and do the best to get the information transferred. So do you want to take out this item at the end?
I would put it at the end.
Give us enough time rather than start, because what we don't
No.
sure that will work.
It'll be half a day anyway, so we have members of staff away helping this objector now, but are we happy to go on with agenda item 5, agenda item 6, agenda item 7, and then the very last agenda item for the day will be agenda item 4. Every member happy with that? Great, okay. In that case, we go to agenda item number 5. Site of former Lockerbie Academy, Glasgow Road, Lockerbie. Planning application for erection of 45 dwelling houses. Formation of access, internal road layouts and associated parking, installation of underground attenuation tanks, and formation of landscaping and associated works. The application is a full application. The reference number is 18/1444/full. The case officer is Andrew Robinson, and the recommendation is to approve subject to the appropriate developer contribution for open space secured either by the successful completion of legal agreement within 6 months of the date of the decision or such extended timescales agreed by appointed officer, or an upfront payment, and B, conditions. So, Andrew, if you'd like to take us through your presentation, this is now agenda item 5. Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is an application for erection of 45 dwelling houses on the site that was previously occupied by Lockerbie Academy. So this is the application site. So new Lockerbie Academy is to the north of the site, former council offices situated to the south. You've got Drive Road on the eastern side of the site and Glasgow Road on the west. So it just takes you through some photographs of the site and surrounding area. So this is from Glasgow Road, looking north. This is further up Glasgow Road, looking south, with 2 properties that are situated adjacent to the site. This is beside the roundabout on Glasgow Road that accesses the academy. So this is the northwestern corner of the site. And this is beyond the fence, so that's showing the northwestern part of the site. This is taken at the southern part of the site, which looks north, so you're looking right across the site. You can see the new academy in the background. This is the southern boundary of the site, so this is adjoining a property called Academy Lodge. And there's, on the southern boundary, there is an access to the adjoining site, which is where the former council offices were. And this is looking towards the northeastern boundary, so that's the rear of properties on Drive Road. This is looking from the rear of properties on Drive Road, so it's looking out westwards across the site. So that's, you can see the Lockerbie Academy to the right there, and that's just moving round, looking towards the southwestern part of the site. And again, moving round again, and that's, you note the site level changes between the properties on Drive Road and the application site. These are the properties on Drive Road. So this is opposite the former council offices. It's looking north up Drive Road. And this is the northeastern corner of the site, with the academy in the background. And this is taken from a similar position, but looking south down Drive Road. And that's the northeastern corner of the site from a similar point. So the proposal is for 45 houses, situated in 13 different residential blocks. So this is the layout of the site. It's effectively a crescent with access from Glasgow Road, with a street layout that terminates in the northwestern part of the site, which is block 6. There's also associated car parking on the site. There has been a landscaping layout submitted with the proposal, which at the minute just proposes grassed turfing. In terms of drainage for the site, this is actually proposed in the form of underground attenuation tanks, which would be situated under parking areas here, here, and here. So that's to capture surface water from roads and properties, and other surface water would be attenuated into manholes which would go into the Scottish water system on Glasgow Road. So that's the drainage strategy for the site. This shows vehicle tracking through the site, effectively to show how a vehicle can manoeuvre in. In terms of the elevations of the buildings, this is the proposed elevation for Block 1, which is situated fronting Glasgow Road. This is Blocks 2 and 5, which are similar, so these are within the site. The plan in the bottom shows the location of these blocks within the proposed development. Blocks 3, 9 and 10. Block 4, very similar to Block 1. Block 6, so this is the building that's located adjacent to the roundabout on Glasgow Road, which serves the Academy. This is Block 7, so this is the one that's as you enter into the site on the right-hand side. Block 8. Block 11, so this is the one that will be situated on the boundary with the Academy. Block 12, so this is fronting Drive Road, it's a bungalow. And Block 13, which is the one right in the northeastern corner. And these are the proposed street elevations, so you can see all this in a bit of context. So this is the elevation to Lockerbie Academy at the top here, so that's looking south. This is the Drive Road elevation, so you've got blocks 12 and 13. This is the Glasgow Road elevation, so that's the existing properties there. Former council offices here. And this is within the site, so that would be read within the context of the site, those two elevations. And these are some visuals that are taken from the design and access statement that's been submitted. So you've got Glasgow Road and the access to the site on the left, and that's within the site. So that's looking from the Academy site, and that's just taken from within the site. So in conclusion, officers consider that this is an acceptable development of an allocated residential site in the LDP, subject to the submission of the further details in the conditions at the end of the report. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Members, questions for the case officer? Ian?
It's a small one. See, if you were standing in the grounds of Lockerbie Academy, you look towards this site, can you just remind us what's looking back at us, please?
Okay, Ian. Any other questions for the case officer? Ivor?
Chair, it's with regard to the Council Education Services, no objection. Is there sufficient capacity at the school to accommodate these houses?
Andrew?
The summary on education is in section 4.47 of the report. The capacity of Lockerbie Academy is 91%, so it does have capacity issues, but because the applicant is an RSL, under the Council's current policy, they're not required to put a contribution in towards education.
Ivor?
Could the officer remind us, do we still have the ability, I know in the olden days, or the good olden days, or whatever you want to call it, when I first joined, that education had the ability to actually say, there's not sufficient capacity, therefore we object. Does this new policy override the fact that if there's not sufficient capacity, we could actually still refuse this?
Andrew, while you're doing that, have education been consulted in this proposal?
Education were consulted on the proposal. Their response comes back stating effectively that they would wish to seek a contribution. We then have to do the assessment and we look at our policy and the supplementary guidance on developer contributions exempt registered social landlords from providing a contribution. So the education contribution has requested a contribution in respect of Lockerbie Primary and Lockerbie Academy with nothing in respect of Lockerbie Nursery. So we've looked at the consultation response, but we've had to assess it against the adopted supplementary guidance, which exempts RSLs from providing that contribution.
So I suppose the answer to Ivor's question is no.
Yeah.
Robert, do you want to help?
Chair, if it's helpful, I'm just looking at the consultation response here in the laptop. Lockerbie Academy at present, the response we got at the school roll was 749, the school capacity is 816. So by my maths, that means there's capacity for 67 pupils at the academy in theory. Now looking at the pupil product ratio for this site, or the number of children you could expect of academy age relative to the number of units proposed here, I don't think that's going to exceed 67 units or get anywhere near it. So my reading of that is the school has capacity as it stands for the extra children this development would accommodate.
Thanks, Ivor. Andy Ferguson.
Thanks very much. Good morning, Andrew. I'm not sure if it's you or the agent later. I need to ask this question. I'm really pleased to see on page 46 about the wheelchair bungalow times 2. You know, was there any discussion about any of the other areas similar to other developments they've got where they've got a significant proportion of houses for people with a disability? And was that, or should that a question you need to ask their agent?
Andrew, if that's for the agent, just tell us that.
Yes, that's for the agent too.
Thanks, Andy. If there are no other members looking to ask questions of the case officer, we'll come to the first registered speaker, which is Mr. David Buchanan, who's an objector. David, like to come forward, please. On the console in front of any seat you choose, there's a little button down on the right-hand side. If you press it, the speaker should illuminate, or around the red button should illuminate it live. You have 3 minutes to address the committee, and I will remind you, with 30 seconds to go, just to draw your presentation to a conclusion, and I would be kind enough to wait in case members have questions for you. That would be helpful. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Good morning. My name is David Buchanan. I live opposite the site on Drive Road, number 16. My objections are: the design is not in keeping with the area. There are no flats at present on Drive Road or Glasgow Road, and in my opinion they are not being built of the same material as others around. Where the proposed houses are to be built opposite me, they are having driveways with provisions for 2 cars per house, and visitors are to park on street. At present, there is a yellow zigzag line to stop on-street parking, as there is the school crossing there, and tenants' cars will have to cross the zigzag to access their property. Neither the zigzags or school crossing are shown on any plans. Why is this? There must be road traffic legislation to keep roads clear at school crossing, is there not? During peak times, you will always see the children walking on the road, as the pavements are inadequate. They are only wide enough for 1 person at a time. My pavement measures just under 1 metre to the outside of the curb. It is not possible to hold a child's hand and walk side by side. My point is, this road is dangerous enough without adding potentially another 8 cars plus visitors to a school crossing area. I don't mind the houses there, but turn them round and give them vehicle access from within the scheme. Widen the pavements at the crossing and create a safer area. Glasgow Road. Potentially, there could be at least 100 cars using the access to the scheme, and the bowling club opposite to the access already have designated parking on Glasgow Road, which is always heavily congested while they have games on. The school has a full car park as well as staff parking on Drive Road and a full bus park at peak times. To add another 100 cars to this area, I think it would be seriously high in pollution levels. The government are taking air pollution very seriously at the moment, and I think this should be monitored now before any works proceed. Since writing these notes, I've received some information from Lockerbie Academy.
You have 30 seconds to go, sir.
Sorry. They've done a survey on it. At 2:30 they had a count of 200 per ppm CO2, and at 3 o'clock it rose to 1,000. The school is at capacity. I don't know where you're getting your figures from, but it is at capacity. I've been assured that. The site cannot be looked at just another building site. It is a very sensitive area due to it neighbouring the academy site, and all pupils having to pass it at some point during the day. There should be no decision made today, as I think a site visit should be proposed for at least 1 or 2 times during peak times, and a traffic study should also be carried out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Any questions for Mr Buchanan, members? Ivor?
Could Mr Buchanan expand the point about the school capacity, please?
I've been at various meetings and I've spoke to, well, we were at the community council meeting, and it was spoken there that they're actually using a staff room as well as the library to educate pupils in. Now, if they're not at the maximum level, why is this due? I don't know.
Thank you, Mr Buchanan. Any other questions for Mr Buchanan? In that case, sir, thank you for your presentation. Just kindly resume your seat. Thank you. We now have Jan Andrews on behalf of Lockerbie and District Community Council. Jan, again, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee. I will remind you with 30 seconds to go to draw your presentation to a conclusion, and if you'd be kind enough to wait in case members have questions for you, and just whenever you're ready.
Is that on?
Can you press the wee button for it?
I've done it. It's on, isn't it? Good morning, my name's Jan Andrews. I'm the Chair of Lockerbie District Community Council. I've been asked by the community of Lockerbie to attend this meeting. I've been asked to I have a list of serious concerns, also health and safety, that's been raised, and I have been asked to bring this to the planning meeting on their behalf. The townspeople have asked you to consider the concerns before passing the plans for the development of the school ground in Lockerbie today. I'll go through the bullet points and try to get as many in the 3 minutes time allocated. A single path walks are only 1 metre wide on the Drive Road. They're single paths for young people, wheelchair users and families who have to walk that road because of the width of the path. They have to walk on the road because of the width of the path, and they're restricted. Parents of the community feel that they should have been consulted, not just the residents of the immediate area, as they equally access there with children. Concerns with parents are that the proposed houses and flats are looking on the play areas. The school has a behaviour support unit, includes several young people with complex needs and behaviours. It's also a nursery, and the views are the concerns of the flats are being considered in the area, especially the ones near the school play areas. The pupil content to that school is 1,128, so I'm concerned where you get your figures. The PTA have not been consulted or informed that there was 30, they were consulted that there was 30 houses, but now it's jumped to 45, and they're raising concerns as well. Is there capacity for schools, dentists, doctors? Has that been taken into consideration? Parking at present in Lockerbie has its own issues. However, people from the Drive Road area have a problem. When these houses were built many years ago, the houses didn't include driveways. If you have a car, you were expected just to park on the road. But as we know, times have changed and houses can have up to 3 or more cars. The residents around the area recognised since the new school build the congestion in traffic and started to use the Drive Road building car park, as that alleviates some of the pressures. However, we don't know what's happening to Drive Road. We don't know what the plans are for Drive Road, so these tenants might have to start parking on the road again. Can I ask, is anybody's taken that into consideration?
You have 30 seconds to go, Jan.
House styles are not in keeping with the surrounding areas. 2 bungalows proposed with drives backing onto Drive Road, where there's a school crossing and chevrons and a crossing lady there. The new builds, it's felt they're not in keeping with surrounding houses. Jesus. Can I conclude it then? It's to say I've attended this meeting today as the Chair of the Community Council, and I've been asked on behalf of the constituents who've consulted with me and other community councillors who act as a consultative body for this council. The people of Lockerbie feel so strongly that their views are now views and needed me to come here today
You need
to
to draw a
address.
conclusion, please.
Okay. Can I request a site visit with elected members, and this would inform them properly about the site?
Thanks very much, Jan. Members, do you have any questions for Jan? Ian?
Jan, I just wonder if there's a whole list of things you've mentioned here, Frey. I think I've just picked up, and your pathways are too small, so I'm taking that's the geometries of the road and the pathways. I think that's the existing infrastructure, and potentially I think you're talking about the proposed. I think there should have been a fuller consultation, but the Parent-Teacher Association, I think you referred to that as well. Were they consulted then? Because I think as far as I'm aware, they may have been at your community council. Were they consulted?
No, they got information regarding 30 new builds, and that's what they were told when the first proposals were put forward.
Okay, Chair, I mean, I'm happy enough with that. I think that when it comes to the session, I think I've got a few comments, because a number of things I took the liberty to go to that community council on Tuesday night, hear what the public were saying, just in a listening capacity, but I think there is a number of things that maybe need to be spoken about.
Thanks, Ian. Any other members have any questions? Ian?
Thank you, Chairman. Jan, you mentioned you keep a figure of the school, the population of the school. Could you repeat that, please?
I can break it down for you as well. I've got all the figures. There's 1,128 pupils that attend Lockerbie School. Do you want it broken down?
If that's the total. No, in fact, if you could break it down,
right.
please.
There's 743 at the secondary, 385 at the primary, 56 in the nursery, and the learning centre there's 19 pupils.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Any other members, any questions? Okay, Jan, thank you very much. If you just resume your seat, that'd be great. The last registered speaker on this item is Mr. Ross Aitchison, the agent. Ross, good morning. You'll be allowed the same 3 minutes. I'll remind you with 30 seconds to go, and you just remain for questions. That'd be great. And whenever you're ready, sir, remember to switch on your microphone. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Ross Aitchison. I'm the project architect from Collective Architecture for this project, representing Cunningham Housing Association, the applicant today. I think to kind of set the scene, that from the outset for this project, there was a number of key aims which we agreed with the Housing Association at the inception. This is an important gateway site to Lockerbie, so anything we could do to enhance that. This is an opportunity to regenerate a brownfield site in a prominent location. It's a site that can encourage sustainable transport and walking. We would look to use familiar house forms, materials and elements that are in keeping with the local character and provide excellent housing within walking distance of the town centre. This project therefore brings forward a development which meets a clear local need for high quality, sustainable and affordable homes. These are brought forward as a mix of house types which provide for a mixed community to be created around a new Crescent Street. Our approach to the design of the site has been to develop a new shared surface street which opens up the site, placing new houses back to back with existing houses around the site, with new houses proposed for Glasgow Road and Drive Road of a similar scale and massing to those already around the site. This includes bungalows to Drive Road, similar to the existing house types found on the street. A key consideration in our approach has been to develop a place-specific house type, which picks up important local vernacular characteristics. These will be houses with bay windows, pitched roofs, chimneys and dormers, in keeping with the local character. We mix these house types to create a strong sense of place, in keeping with what's around us. The houses will be finished in a clay facing brick, chosen to match the local Lockerbie stone colouring as close as possible, with tiled roofs in keeping with the slate finish found locally. These house types are made predominantly of a mix of bungalows to Drive Road, and within the heart of the site, we've got semi-detached houses, terraced houses, and cottage flat types. Cottage flat types providing for a greater amount of amenity housing on the site. The client group have found that ground floor cottage flats work well for elderly residents, so we've kind of created a mixed community by utilising those Throughout the development process, we've consulted with the community through 2 well-attended consultation events. These have resulted in changes being adopted in the design, which have both enhanced and improved the proposals. We've also consulted significantly with planning and roads throughout the development process, through the pre-application process, and through meetings following our submission. This has allowed us to refine items such as the road design and to take on board the representations made through the planning process by local residents. We believe this to be a high-quality development of a scale and design in keeping with the local character, which we believe will have a lasting impact and enhance the gateway to Lockerbie. We hope that the committee will approve this proposal today, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ross. Any members for the agent? Any members, any questions for the agent? Andy and then John and then John.
Okay, it's 2. One, it was the question I asked earlier about the, I'm pleased to see that you've included 2 dwellings for wheelchair users. Are there any plans to make some of the other houses adaptable for that type of use if it was required? That's the first question. And a kind of a more technical question. The houses that are backing or onto Drift Road, is there a technical reason why they're not being accessed from inside the sort of crescent, and the gardens would back onto Drive Road rather than the access to the road?
Yeah, to answer your first question, we've actually got 3 amenity bungalows within the site, so there's 2 on Drive Road. And there's also an additional one within the heart of the site that kind of came about through the consultation process, where the community suggested there was a strong local need for additional bungalow types. But we've also, with the cottage flat house type, every ground floor cottage flat has been designed to be adaptable to amenity bungalow effectively on those ground floors. So that would make an additional 9 that could be adapted later. For the second question, there's a significant level change between Drive Road and Glasgow Road. So kind of on assessment, we felt that a single road access into the site on Glasgow Road to create the crescent would afford the best opportunity, and then it allows us to basically continue the street pattern on Drive Road with the 2 additional blocks that we're proposing up there on the higher level.
Andy, you happy with that, yeah? John Young.
Hello, Ross. Thanks for your presentation. More a general question. Is the provision of solar panels in large developments like this ever considered by housing associations?
This development will have solar panels for each house.
Thanks, John. John Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Ross, I was looking at the wheelchair bungalows. My concern would be the parking for these. See, there's 121 parking bays. Will these wheelchair bungalows, will they have the proper parking bays for disabled cars?
So the bungalows to Drive Road have the provision directly adjacent either side of them, and so does the bungalow within the site. There's a parking bay for wheelchair users. As I said, we've consulted with the roads department throughout the process, and they've given us comments on the location and form of those parking bays.
Jane Maitland.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I have got a number of questions, and forgive me if I ask them all. I'd like you to define what is a cottage flat. I'd like you to address the zigzag issue which was raised by one of the objectors. Could you also tell us whether you have any comments to add on the issue of education, whether you have any problems or recognise any problems with that? And could you explain why particularly you think that this will encourage walking in Lockerbie, please?
Okay, one by one, if you forgive me for if I can get lost along the way, but a cottage flat is a flat type which is which you can use in scale with a terraced house. So on the screen in front of you, The cottage flat is the bottom left image is a cottage flat type, so you have two flats with main door entrances. There's no common close. So the ground floor flat is entered from the front at the lower level. The upper flat, you go through a front door and directly up a stair to your living accommodation on the first floor. It's kind of like a traditional 4-in-a-block type house type that you might be more familiar with. Cottage flat seems to be the term that's taken hold.
Yeah.
Could you remind me of the second question? The second question, sorry.
The second question was about the zigzag issue.
Certainly. As I said, we've consulted with the Roads Department throughout this process. We did a pre-application meeting with the Planning Department, including roads. There was nothing raised at that meeting on that issue. We subsequently submitted our application, and no further comments were raised by the Roads Department on that being an issue. We've had no adverse comments on that.
The third one was the education issue.
Yeah, certainly. We can only base our proposals on the facts that we are given. Education were consulted as part of the pre-application process. They've been consulted subsequently as part of the planning application process. They've raised no objections to the development.
And the final one was that you alleged that this will encourage walking.
It's obviously council policy to encourage sustainable developments and permeable developments. The site layout has been designed as such to create an opportunity for a future pedestrian link to the old school site, which is to our south. So we've kind of developed these proposals to allow any future development to take place that links our site and that future site, which would then allow a permeable connection through that site into the town centre and to the academy.
That's right, Jane. Thanks, Jane. Ian Carruthers?
I think with the question being asked today, the only one that's really left for me at this moment in time, with session, is the opportunity. What's the density of this in comparison? There was mention of the out of character. I think maybe high density was maybe mentioned at the Community Council actually, but it does look high density in comparison to the local area. Have we got comparables? What is the density of this site compared to the local area?
David, can you help Councillor Carruthers with that question? He's asking what the density is in relation to similar estates in the Lockerbie area. Is that right?
I think in Andrew's report there is reference to the densities elsewhere. Yes, that's page 58, paragraph 419. It is set out there in terms of the... Is that right, Andrew?
Yeah, the density has been assessed in detail in paragraphs 4.19 to 4.21. We don't have any specific figures in terms of number of houses per hectare, but the assessment has basically looked at the layout of the surrounding area and wider surrounding area and taken that into account.
So Andrew seems to think that layout's acceptable in that area.
I suppose that's what I'm hearing, Chairman. I'm hearing that it maybe complies with current day regulation. Did you say it was in comparison? One of the points that was raised was in comparison to what the site and layout of the original character of the buildings and setting that is already there. But come back to that in session, Chairman.
I've got Elaine Murray, Dr. Murray.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about the consultation that you'd carried out with the community. You mentioned that you'd had two well-attended consultation events. We heard from the Chair of the Community Council that the PTA felt that they hadn't been made aware that it was going to be 45 houses rather than 30 houses. And also she implied that the people of Lockerbie were objecting in significant numbers to this. So I just wondered if you could say a bit more about how you'd consulted and how many people had responded.
It was the applicant that arranged and gathered the information from the consultation events, but they were both well-attended events. One was held at the Lockerbie Academy and the second one at the bowling club. The original proposal brought forward for this site in the first consultation event was for a development of 48 housing units. That was our initial starting point based on a capacity study undertaken by the applicant previously. Following that consultation event and the pre-application meetings with the planning department, we felt that it was appropriate to reduce the number of units on the site to 45 as being an appropriate number. 48 was deemed to be at the upper limits of acceptability as part of the consultation with the planning department. So that kind of resulted in the reduction. The Community Council attended both consultation events, as did a number of the local residents who were invited to attend. One of the key changes that resulted in was there was a pedestrian link proposed connecting Drive Road to our site that would have run adjacent to the rear of two of the properties, the existing properties on Drive Road. This was strongly objected to by the local community, and so we subsequently removed that. There was positive feedback as a result of that. The second consultation event, I think a large amount of the objections we received were to do with the tenure of the housing as opposed to the design, which is obviously not a planning consideration.
So the impression you got was that people were objecting to social housing as opposed to private housing?
I think there was a strong sense that the tenure was the challenge.
Thanks, Elaine. I have David James, Dougie Campbell, and Jeff Lever. So, James.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Ross, good morning.
Morning.
There are 45 dwelling houses proposed, most of them around 4-person in capacity, as far as I can see. Would the capacity then be something around 180 in total? And you'll probably have done projections about who's going to inhabit these dwellings. How many school-aged children from nursery to secondary school would you expect to be living there? And no doubt, as the developer, you've had contact with the school. So if you could give us an opinion on the capacity of the school to take further pupils, please.
I think in terms of the consultation with the schools and the education department, they were present at our pre-application meeting. They presented figures at that meeting that showed that there was capacity within the school. I think Robert has outlined what those numbers are this morning. They're the numbers that we have in front of us, and this education department has not objected to the development. So we can only go on the information that we're given. We can't project what the capacity of the school might be.
So in the number of residents in total you expect, and how many of them will be nursery to high school age, please?
From previous developments, Cunningham Housing Association find that they may be under capacity, the houses. So if it's a 4-person house, it may have 3 residents in it. So it depends on who is applying for the housing at the time as to who is allocated the housing. I can't tell you who's going to be living in those houses at present.
Obviously difficult to judge capacity then when you've got no idea who's going to be there, but thank you.
Thanks, David. Dougie Campbell, Jeff Lever, and then Doug Fairbairn.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, Ross. Ross, we've had objections this morning in relation to traffic-related issues, and that's understandable, bearing in mind the size of the development within an area surrounded by buildings. Condition 10, should we be minded to approve this application this morning? Condition 10 makes a requirement for a traffic management plan to be submitted by the developer. Could you maybe speak about what cognizance you will take in developing that plan to the objections that have been raised this morning, or the concerns around the traffic-related issues, to mitigate against the community concerns there? And also, perhaps if officers could clarify, I think I'm right in saying that if there's any proposed changes to the layout of the road system, that there would be an element of community consultation before that actually takes place?
It might be for Andrew to answer the second question, if you direct your first one to the agent.
I think, as I've said previously, we've had extensive discussions with the Roads Department about this development from the pre-application stage through to what's in front of you today, as has our engineers who are currently developing their roads construction consent package, which will go back to the Roads Department for approval after this application. I think, we can put forward proposals. Our initial proposal for the site had suggested that there was an opportunity for 2 road connections off Glasgow Road with a second one at the roundabout to the academy. The Roads Department were not keen to have a connection there, and we were guided towards entering the site from where we now propose. With regards to the properties on Drive Road, the Roads Department haven't shown any objections to what we've proposed in that location. The proposal allows us to push back the properties at block 12 and 13 on the site, which has allowed us to create the parking in front of those properties. This has created the opportunity for us to widen, or to propose to widen the footpath in front of block 13 as the school gates exit, so that we can, within our site boundary, improve the condition of the pavement area in front of those blocks to try and alleviate some of the issues that have been raised by residents.
The second part of your question, this is a full application, so this is a road layout we'll be agreeing today if that's what we do or considering today. So there shouldn't be a revised, but if there is ever a revised application, what's the process, Andrew? Is there community consultation or is it a non-material variation of the application?
The details are as per the plan, and we've considered the application in consultation with our roads colleagues in that area. There's obviously a lot of there's been concerns raised about the yellow zigzag. It probably might be worth me putting my roads colleague on to explain about the zigzag and its implications. So I'll just pass you over to Ken Druitt, who can explain a little bit more about this.
Thank you, Chair, members. I'll try and cover a couple of the points that have been raised so far, and I'll start with the clearway, if I might, outside the school, with the zigzags as such. I've consulted with colleagues in the network strategy and road safety team, and I'm advised that the school clearway imposes no stopping restrictions during given hours of operation over the length of the markings. Their purpose is to stop parking and waiting on the actual road itself. That restriction would also apply to any residents in blocks 12 and 13. So during the hours of operation, they wouldn't be able to park on the street there. It does not, however, stop a vehicle manoeuvring over the zigzags, as long as they do not stop. It's fair to say that there are a number of schools where the car park accesses cross the zigzag markings, and so there is clearly going to be vehicles moving back and forward across it in existing situations. So it's not deemed to be a safety issue. In respect of the narrow footways, clearly there are many towns and villages where footways are restricted. However, in respect of the footways where the development has got frontage, the footways are going to be normal width, and indeed on Drive Road, as the agent has indicated already, there is a wider area that is behind the footway that will be available for children to congregate when they're waiting for the school crossing patrol, and it provides a visibility area in that area as well. In respect of the traffic management plan, the traffic management plan that's required is for the construction phase, because clearly when you've got a lot of lorries and site traffic and those manoeuvres going on, it's going to have an impact on the local area, and clearly proximity to the school is a concern. So the traffic management plan is to address what mitigation measures can be provided and how we can make sure that the movement of those deliveries is safe. That has to be approved by the council as roads authority and also the police. I can't remember whether there's any other questions I was meant to ask.
No, we'll come back to that, because that was just a digression. It was really, we're still in questions to the agent. It was just that question was supplementary to a question to the agent. So We're still in questions to the applicant or agent. Councillor Lever.
Are all the properties rental properties? And my other question is regarding the width of the pavement. I mean, can they be adjusted to take into account the concerns about the narrowness of the existing pavement on Drive Road?
In terms of the pavement width, the areas that we have within our control, we are providing a widening of that pavement, as Ken just said, and the properties will all be for social rent.
Thanks, Jeff. I've got Doug Fairbairn, Jim McCormick and Andy Ferguson.
Apologies. Yeah, it's to do with the street layout in relation to parking on the pavement. There's an informal square feature with a change of material. Can you tell me about that?
In the
How are we going
centre,
to alleviate people parking on the pavement, basically?
this is a shared surface development, so that's been developed with the roads department. So the road layout, the area that's kind of demarcated in the kind of hatched pattern, is a single surface. There's no pavement as such. It's a shared surface street. So it's all one level surface.
Right, so that's no concern then, really?
That's been developed in consultation with the roads department. That is their preferred approach to how we develop this streetscape.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Jim McComb.
Thank you, Chair. There's a statement here that it is considered that there is a reasonable degree of amenity space. Could you please tell me where the amenity space is?
Yeah, so as part of that shared surface street, there's an area between blocks 2 and 3 that is kind of deemed to be a kind of pocket square. It's a breakout between development of the houses. We've also got some amenity space between blocks 7 and 8, which have been prized apart to allow us that future opportunity to link through to the old school site. So there's small areas there. In terms of current provision in Lockerbie, Lockerbie has significant open space provision at present based on the council's own standards.
Chair, is there any play space? Are there any play areas for children?
There's no play park as such proposed on the site at the present time.
Thanks, Andy Ferguson.
Thanks. I'm going back to the houses that are accessing Drive Road. Have you got an idea, I'm assuming you will have, how the construction will develop if this application is successful? You know, for example, would the houses facing onto Drive Road, would they be potentially built first and then the houses to the west of them would be built after that? Or will the traffic management plan actually not only include Glasgow Road but include Drive Road? If you're going to enter the site, you know, from Drive Road, I think I kind of find here it's very clear how the site access is going to be. Maybe it's Ken's question when we're in session, I'm not sure.
Well, if the agent can't help you, Andrew will when we get into session, but agent's going to, I think, give you some response.
I can't tell you how a contractor is going to construct this in terms of their phasing of the works at this moment in time, because the contractor hasn't been formally appointed to the works. That will be developed as part of the traffic management plan as well after that has happened.
I think normally the police are consulted as well, so I'm quite sure they'll have an input in that. Any other Jane Maitland?
There is one question. There is no access onto Drive Road. Is that correct? There is absolutely no access whatsoever.
There's no road access through from Drive Road into the development site. There's the 2 new blocks proposed face onto Drive Road with parking in front. But there's no road.
No, I wasn't thinking about road. It's pedestrian. There's absolutely nothing.
You don't pass through from Drive Road into this site. No.
The officer, if I may, suggested that that would be a good thing to do with respect to our policies. Why have we not done it?
So as you can see on the plan on the screen, there's a leg within the red boundary that passes through between existing properties on Drive Road. That was an area that was proposed by the planning officers as a point to connect to Drive Road. As part of our consultation process, that was a point of high contention between to the existing residents of Drive Road who use that space to access their rear gardens. Through that consultation process, it was kind of deemed to be a non-starter by those residents, and in a kind of neighbourly way, we felt that it was more appropriate for the houses that we're proposing that they go back to back with the existing properties, and that we don't try to create a route through that area where the level change again is very significant, and there was no guarantee that we'd be able to create a DDA compliant access either, so it would have probably had to be a stepped route.
Chairman, nevertheless, through you, that there is, however, there was a suggestion that it should have been between box 12 and 13, because it's quite right, this is a kind of oasis in the middle, which I think it's exactly what we're attempting not to provide for people. We want to mix people up, make communities interlinked, not have these islands. And at the moment, what I can see at the moment is that we have a kind of block enclosure in the middle of Lockerbie, out of which you can only get onto Glasgow Road.
I think from our perspective, the connection to the old school site offered the greatest opportunities for future development. It's something that the new local development plan is keen to promote as a connection between this proposed development site and any future development of the old Lockerbie school. So for us to create connections back to the town centre, the northwest route through the site was deemed to be the better connection opportunity.
Jane?
But would I be correct in assuming that you have no control over that, and if the owner decided they didn't want to do it, there would be no means of doing it? I don't know whether we could insist as a planning authority. I'll have to ask the officers that, but at the moment there is nothing to suggest that that would actually definitely happen.
We could place condition that requiring them to put a path there, but bearing in mind you've been told that the residents don't actually want that, but that's entirely in your gift.
I think we can only control the elements that are within our site boundary, but certainly I'm sure the planning officers could respond to the idea that development site to the south of us at the old Lockerbie School, there is a desire in the local development plan to create that connection, so that does exist within the council's local development plan already.
Okay, one last speaker, Councillor McKee.
Actually, Jane asked the same question as I was going to ask, but I think if I could just follow up, there was a planning application not that long ago where an access was designed to go from one block through to another, and it was rejected because it was creating a rat run and could create problems, and I could see why there's objections to having a footpath through there. Although I was thinking along these lines, I would agree with what the gentleman has said. Thanks, Chair.
We will be able to address that in one session. Still questions to the agents? Ian Carruthers?
Just a really small one, because I mean, I'd just going back to my original question, but maybe come back in session, but that really answers the density when you look at that. But I'm just wondering what the average floor area stroke footprint is of that in square metres, if we've got any indication to what is it per average household. So you're looking at them, just comparing that to the rest. Looks like maybe 50 or 60 square metres, or is it beyond that?
The agent's scrolling through his book as you speak.
Not to hand. However, all the houses have been designed to meet housing for varying needs standards, and obviously meet the building regulation standards. So, but the housing for varying needs standard is a more onerous space standard requirement, and obviously the wheelchair units become enlarged as a result of that as well. So,
thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions for the agent or applicant, Ross, thank you very much. If you'd like to take your seat again, switch off the microphone, please. Members, we're in session. Archie and then Iva.
Thanks very much, Chair. It was good to see so many questions from members to both the objectors and the applicant agent. Looking at this whole thing, I mean, I see this as a necessity in Lockerbie because of the amount of people who are requiring housing in that particular area. We have seen right across the board when we look at things like poverty and all of that, there is a requirement for this type of housing in Dumfries and Galloway, and especially in the Lockerbie area. I was quite surprised to hear about the density, because when you look at Lockerbie in itself, up past the Martin, up by the Martin, that particular area where the social housing on the hillside is quite densely populated with houses there. So this, I think, is actually in keeping with things in Lockerbie itself. We have to remember we're a planning authority, of course, and not everybody gets consulted on planning applications. Parent Teachers Associations are not a statutory consultee. There are, of course, problems with the existing infrastructure in place, but this planning application is not about the existing infrastructure, it's about moving forward with some new houses for the particular area. I do have an issue with the item number 10, of course, the condition number 10, and I would like to see added into condition number 10 that the traffic management plan does include both Glasgow Road and Drive Road. That said, Chair, I think from a planning perspective and policy that we have in place, I would like to see us go along with the recommendation on this one.
So are you making a motion to agree subject to a small change to condition number 10?
Yeah.
And Lucy has a note of what that proposed change is.
It was to include Drive Road and Glasgow Road as part of the traffic management plan.
I've got Councillor Hislop, then Councillor Ferguson. Oh, you've got a second, Archie, okay. So you've got a seconder for the motion from Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Hislop?
Chair, it's with regard to condition 1. I note that that's been put in on the back of some concerns with regard to the paragraph at 4.47, whereby 20% of the houses, if it was to be sold on, would go to affordable housing. If it's sold on, does that mean to say a private developer can buy it and hasn't to pay any contribution towards education? Now, this is one that's happened in the past. We have actually approved RSLs. So RSLs could then become agents where they actually apply for housing and they cut out the policies. I know that's not happening in this one, but should we be looking to actually amend that condition to make sure that if it was to be passed on and that there was no social housing, some affordable housing, but through a private developer, should we actually be looking for a contribution to educational needs?
It's maybe something we need to deal with after this particular application, but David, what's your advice?
It's a valid point, actually. We do need to have that condition just in case it's sold on. The difficulty being that the planning permission wouldn't be granted as recommended here unless there was the legal agreement entered into for the open space, but there is nothing in respect of education side of things. I would need to give quite a bit of thought to that, because normally you couldn't pin that down. I think the risk is very minimal, given Cunningham's track record in the area. Every development they've received permission for, they've proceeded with. That said, you've flagged up a valid point. I would like to take legal advice on whether or not we could do that. I suspect the best we could do is change condition 1 to factor in something along the lines of, in the event that it isn't an RSL, a developer contribution for as appropriate would need to be paid, but the difficulty would be securing that because the permission would have been granted by that time. But the condition, I suppose, is the best bet we'd have. So it's a valid point, an interesting one to contemplate. I think condition 1 probably could be evaded to take that on.
We'll go through the process, and the members are minded to support this application and agree to grant, then we'll come back to condition 1 and condition 10. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Chairman. I think maybe just a few words, Chairman, if you don't mind. I mean, I prefer a site visit, actually. After listening to the objections, so procedurally, this will be a procedural point I'll put, but I'll just state my reasons why if I get my 3 minutes. Might take up to that. So we've heard about road safety concerns, we've heard about overlooking the level of density out with, we've heard concerns that there's a conflict of information when it comes to it with regards to the school role, whether there's got to be a pressure there, and is that actually a material planning consideration? I think there's enough there, and what hasn't been said actually, because like I said, I was there in the listening capacity on Tuesday night, that the people at Lockerbie are actually for development, residential development. They support the principle of residential development on this site. I think it's the volume is what they have concerns with, and the wider impact that will have on their community that they currently live in. It's their own amenities, and they'll be left with this. No, they'll be left with this. The local community in Lockerbie. I think it's worthy of a site visit, Chairman. They have raised road safety concerns, like I said. They have raised the fact that there may well be pressure, actually overlooking security as well as things that they raised on the night. I think they have genuine concerns, and it's only right. They went wider in regards to the further implications on health and social care as well. I don't know if that's a material planning consideration or not, but there's a whole raft of things. But I think we should at least take the time out to go out and have a site visit, and we can see firsthand then the concerns that are actually raised and the impact it has at a local level. It's absolutely out of character. There's no two ways about that. It's whether I feel it's on balance. There's been an exception made, but there's no way that fits in the local area. I mean, half a mile away, it would fit in more like it, half a mile away from there up towards what's locally known as Legoland. But just to put it into context. But I mean, Chairman, I would move that we actually have a site visit to take into consideration the points that have been raised through the objections and been pointed out here today. In particular, I would like to hear as well, if we do get to a site visit, I'd like to hear from representation from the school, have a clear understanding what the role is, and be able to take the chance to look at the volume, the pedestrian and traffic. So the timing, I think, would be important to that as well. So either when the kids are either accessing or coming out of the school. And I'll tell you where I'm coming from in particular. Recently, in my own ward at Newington Primary School, now that's historical and so on and so forth, but every member of this council in that ward, in Arndale South Ward, have been lobbied many times about and so has the police and the community safety officers and so on and so forth, about the congestion, the risks, the safety and so on and so forth. So a child was hit maybe a couple of weeks ago, maybe just before Christmas actually. Time flies in. Fire engine got jammed for about half an hour because of the congestion. So good planning is absolutely... No, but it puts it into context, Chairman, so I'm saying a school...
Let's get to the point.
A school, so
please.
the point I'm getting to, I'm just trying to justify and say, listen, I think this legitimately validates that we should have a site visit to take into consideration the extra traffic, pedestrian generation this will create in regards to the traffic in that local vicinity and the concerns that have been raised. Chairman, I would move that we have a site visit.
Well, that stops the discussion until we determine whether or not we're going to have a site visit. So we've got a proposal for a site visit, and you've outlined some of them. I would have difficulty accepting, because I would expect us to take the information from the Education Authority as being accurate. That's what the local community is saying. That's what we expect, though. So you have given enough reason that I'm prepared to accept that it's valid. Do you have a seconder for a site visit?
Yeah, second.
Is anyone otherwise minded? Councillor Tarbreoch.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think the issue here is about this issue here. I mean, the road at Newton's 3 times narrower than the road that's on the Glasgow road, so the issues are not an issue as far as I'm concerned. I think we've got enough information here, relying on our officers from education and from planning and from roads to make a decision today, and I would so move.
Happy second.
Who's that? Andy. So we've a move to site visit and one to continue.
Motion put forward by Councillor Carruthers, seconded by Councillor Fairbairn, to go on a site visit. And we have an amendment from Councillor Tarbreoch and seconded by Councillor Ferguson that there is sufficient information to determine the application today. I'm going to proceed to the vote. Councillor Dempster.
Amendment.
Councillor Campbell.
Amendment.
Councillor Blake.
Motion.
Councillor Dougie Campbell.
Amendment.
Councillor Crothers.
Motion.
Councillor Drybrough.
Amendment.
Councillor Fairbairn.
Motion.
Councillor Ferguson.
Amendment.
Councillor Giusti.
Motion.
Councillor Hislop. Councillor James. Councillor Lever.
Amendment.
Councillor Maitland.
Amendment.
Councillor Martin.
Amendment.
Councillor McComb.
Motion.
Councillor McKee.
Amendment.
Councillor Murray.
Amendment.
Councillor Young.
Amendment.
And I can confirm that the amendment carries with 11 votes to 7, and therefore the application will be determined today.
Thank you, Lucy. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chairman. There have been conflicting views about the school role. We heard from Jan Andrews about the figures that she gave forward, and Robert did mention figures, but unfortunately I didn't note them at the time. Can I ask that Robert goes back over the total number and the breakdown, please?
Chair, I'm quite happy to confirm the situation. The figures I read out earlier, I'll go over this again, but just to clarify, this was consultation response from Education Services within the Council. It was received on the 11th of October last year, so it's fairly up to date. Needless to say, the case officer Andrew Robinson's used this as part of his report and relied upon this information. The figures again, you've got Lockerbie Nursery, Lockerbie Primary and Lockerbie Academy. Now, there are two key figures for each, the school role and the school capacity. So Lockerbie Nursery, the information we have says the school role is 31 and the school capacity or the nursery capacity is 40. For the primary school, the school role has been given as 312 with the school capacity is 356. And for the academy, the school role has been given as 749 and the school capacity is 816. Now, in terms of what you could reasonably anticipate to arise as a result of this development, there was something that I referred to called the pupil-product ratio, and I didn't maybe explain that too well. If you look at the Council's local development plan, adopted supplementary guidance and developer contributions, and that was the version that was adopted in June 2017. If you look at the foot of page 9, it explains calculations and what the pupil-product ratio is. So just reading from it, it says contributions are based, these are financial contributions, are based on the number of pupils which have resulted from recent developments throughout the region, and this information is used to anticipate a pupil-product ratio per property. By dividing the number of pupils resulting from new developments, a PPR has been determined as follows. So for nursery schools, it's 0.08, primary schools 0.32, and secondary schools 0.14. So what that means is if you've got 10 houses, you can expect 0.8 of a nursery school pupil and so on. So it gives you a ratio. Now, during the break, I've taken the opportunity of doing some sums in that. So you're looking at 45 properties in this development. Going by the figures I've got from education in their consultation response of 11th of October last year and looking at the nursery contribution, 0.08 multiplied by 45 would give you 3.6. You can't have a fraction of a child. So if you round that up to 4, add it to the present role, that would give you 35, where the capacity has been indicated to be 40. For primary school children, the pupil product ratio is 0.32. So if you multiply that by 45, you're getting 14.4, round it up to 15, add it to the stated present role of 312, you're at 327, which is less than the given capacity of 356. For the secondary school, pupil product ratio is 0.14, so if you multiply that by 45, it gives you 6.3, round it up to 7, add it to the present role of 746, it gives you 756, which is short of the stated capacity of 816. So that's going on the information we've got and the adopted guidance in your local development plan.
And just to confirm, we don't seek contributions in educational if it's an RSL.
That's right. As Andrew Robinson said earlier, it's if it's
Councillor Blake, do you
RSL.
want to come back?
Yeah, thank you for your full response to my question. There is a bit of concern here that the numbers are significantly apart. The nearest one is the secondary, where the Jan Andrews' view was almost the same as the council response. But the other ones, the primary, you're talking about 73 pupils difference, 25 difference in the nursery, and there were absolutely no account at all given with the learning unit that's proposed to be there.
Yeah. Now, we're at a stage here where we have a motion supported. Is this an amendment, David? Or?
Robert was saying there was point 8 was his multiplication factor. I think he meant 0.08 probably.
Good for you, David. Swap seats? So we have a motion to approve subject to an amendment to condition 1 and an amendment to condition 10. Councillor Carruthers.
Just that point, it was raised earlier on. I raised it initially during the questions from representatives, but I think I'd like to be absolutely clear in my own mind when it comes to, is it a material consideration in regards to not so much the developers' contributions, but the pressure it's put on the council. The council in real terms saying, okay, we'll accept the extra load. The police actually raised concerns on Tuesday night as well, which I didn't mention, but the PTA said actually it's the highest roll that they've had in Lockerbie coming up this year, the forecast, and that's what's got to take it over. It isn't the figures right now, and that's information that isn't in front of us. But on top of that, I just think, is it a material consideration when it comes to planning? I thought it was, that if we've got to put pressure on a school, and we haven't got, I mean, I don't know, unless SIPL's got their budget aligned up, maybe it's got nothing to do with it, maybe planning's completely separate, but I thought it was, and I do believe we will put pressure.
Planning doesn't deal with council budgets, that's a certainty. You've been given information that there's adequate space, that's in the papers. You have a motion that says we'll go with the recommendation, you have a seconder. David?
There is an issue, obviously, for if members are concerned about the developer contribution document as to whether or not RSL should be eligible to pay where there is any pressure. The current council policy says no, but obviously that's a matter for EEI committee to, well, even the full council, when the supplementary guidance goes back as to whether or not you want to amend that. But current council policy would say this is acceptable because it's an RSL, and any school pressure really therefore couldn't be a material consideration as far as this one goes. As far as it is an RSL, but I take on board Councillor Hislop's point, and I would request that if members are minded to approve this, that we find a form of words to amend condition 1 to make it clear that if it's not an RSL, then a developer contribution would be payable and affordable housing has to be provided at 20%.
And I think it's always been the case within this committee that we consider any applications on the policies that currently exist. Even if this is revisited in another year, it would still be considered, is that right, David, under the policy that we're considering in today? So we have a motion, and Archie?
Yeah, it's just to say, I mean, I'm quite happy if that's to be added in condition number 1, to go with that side of things, as well as the Drive Road, Glasgow Road thing on condition 10.
And your seconder content with that as well, Andy? Okay. So we have a motion and a seconder. If there are no alternative proposals, then we will agree the officer's recommendation to approve, subject to as is laid out in the paper, with a change to condition 1 to include a funding requirement being placed if the RSL sells to a private developer, and condition 10 to include consultation on 2 roads, Archie?
Drive Road and Glasgow. The Drive Road and Glasgow.
Right. Okay, members satisfied with that? Okay, that's agreed. That's a unanimous decision. Lucy, can you confirm the decision of the committee, please?
Okay, might need just clarification with that, but the decision is unanimously to go with the recommendations, but to amend condition 1 which is to include a funding requirement has to be in place if the RSL sells to a private developer, and amend condition 10 to include Dryfor Road and Glasgow Road as part of the traffic management plan. Is that happy?
Thank you, Lucy. That's agreed. Okay. Thank you, members. We come to agenda item number 6. Installation of play equipment, boundary railings and entrance gates, erection of outdoor classroom, siting of porta cabin, timber clad and associated works at Catherine Street Park, Catherine Street, Dumfries. This is a full application. Reference number is 18/1577/full. The recommendation is to approve subject conditions, and the case officer presenting it is Pat Hanna on behalf of Torrell Glendinning. So, Pat, if you'd like to take us through your presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Is Alistair Dunlop present? Yeah. So you will be allowed to speak, sir, when we get round to that. And thanks for making that request. Okay, so Pat, can you take us through the presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. By way of background, the Catherine Street Park was identified by the Council as the chosen location for an inclusive play area for Dumfries following public consultation, and this was agreed by the Communities Committee in September 2017. This proposal requires planning permission as it's being developed by the local community organisation Include Us, and as an aside, planning permission would not be required were this being developed by the council because of the statutory powers that the council has. Catherine Street Park is identified in red on the plan in front of you. It's just opposite the Ewart Library in Dumfries and opposite the Academy, Dumfries Academy, and it is within the Dumfries Conservation Area. This is the existing site plan showing some existing play equipment and 35 trees, showing the specific crown spread of those trees as well. This is the proposed site plan showing new pieces of play equipment, which includes a number of items that are fully accessible and inclusive for wheelchair users. A new access is being provided from the usual place cafe, which is to the top of the image that you can see in front of you. A number of pathways and hard surfaces are being provided of different materials across the park to allow full accessibility. Up in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you can see that there is an outdoor classroom that is being proposed, and to the central top there is a workspace which is a timber-clad porter cabin. As part of the proposal, 10 trees are being felled. Well, I say as part of the proposal, as part of the development, but the felling of those trees does not form part of this specific proposal and planning application. The council is undertaking those felling works and other tree works as part of its statutory duties as maintenance of public open space. This site plan shows some drainage on the site. All of the surfaces are to be permeable. There's a couple of soakaways shown from the outdoor classroom and from the workspace. And the water feature, which I'll show you later, is to drain to the mains. The site is to remain largely level. Various pieces of furniture are to be included here, including accessible and wheelchair-friendly picnic benches. The proposed outdoor classroom is an open-sided structure made of timber with cedar shingle roof. And the workspace, shown the lower part of the image, is a porter cabin that is to be clad in timber. Proposed swing and the green area identifies an area for a wheelchair swing. Whilst the sandstone walls to Academy Street and to Catherine Street are to be retained, New boundary railings are proposed between the park and between the usual place, which is shown centre of the image there. And there are also intended to be some timber fencing on top of the wall between the park and the Lovers Walk lane. Moving on to some of the pieces that will be installed or would be installed within the park, this is the proposed water play area. There's going to be windpipes, a slack line, a cradle swing, an ability trampoline which allows wheelchair users to access it. An ability roundabout, again fully accessible, and a platform house. And moving on to the photographs, this is a general view of the park from Academy Street. On the left is the usual place, and on the right is the Ewart Library. This is the view from the usual place. That small wall, the brick wall that you see there, will be replaced by the railings and a gateway. And turning left, this is part of the lane that serves the rear of the properties on Lovers Walk. And within this end section, pretty much where the car is, will be the workspace area, the timber-clad workspace area. And this is a wider view of the park. Just a general view of the park from the inside. And this is looking towards the back of the Lovers Walk properties, and in the corner ahead of you in the photograph is where the outdoor classroom will be sited. And stepping to the left, this is looking at the usual place, and the workspace would be just behind the wall where the car is sited. And this is just a general view of the park as seen from Catherine Street. Third-party objections have been raised relating to overdevelopment of the park, to the new boundary treatments and the paving being inappropriate, to the removal of the trees, and to potential antisocial use of the park, amongst other matters. However, Catherine Street Park is a well-established play area already, and the proposal seeks to improve upon the existing by providing a range of accessible and inclusive play equipment and facilities. The proposal would have no adverse impact upon the wider conservation area, and it's unlikely to raise any residential amenity issues that would not already exist by way of the use of the existing park. This is a proposal that meets many of the key council priorities. It would provide a good start in life for children, it would help to protect vulnerable people, and it would help us serve to be an inclusive council. Accordingly, as set out in the report, it's recommended that the application be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Members, questions for the case officer? David?
Good morning, Pat. Afternoon. Are we to assume that the felling of the trees is routine maintenance or just a happy coincidence? And I was too slow looking at the first diagrams, but are those trees the ones that are in the corner near to the library, please? Thank you.
Pat?
Okay, thanks, Chair. I'll just go back to the slides. Right. Yes, there are 10 trees that are proposed to be felled, and a pre-application inquiry was submitted to us by the community asset manager for Dumfries, which included an arboriculturalist report on all of the trees, which made reference to the fact that the trees have been very poorly managed over previous years, and it identifies 10 that would need to be felled within the next year. The 10, I'll try and point them out here, are a cluster at the entrance to the usual place. There's, you can see, is that 3 or 4 that are going there? Yes, 4, just on the left-hand cluster of the usual place. There's a very small one just in front of the new entrance to the usual place, that one there. This tree there. And 3 at the front that are underneath the existing larger trees, which are here, here, here. Bat surveys were also submitted, which concluded that, that there were no bats at risk from felling of these trees.
Thank you, David. Any other? John Martin?
Well, on the report, the police are actually saying that the security of the park would be benefit from placing natural surveillance. Is there any plans for a CCTV surveillance security camera, or is it covered by any other security cameras, do we know, in the area?
I'm not aware that it's covered by CCTV at all, and certainly there's no plans proposed as part of this application. It is an existing park, and there's no real change of use that's occurring here, and therefore from a planning perspective it probably wouldn't be reasonable to require any alteration of the applicant or by the applicant here for a new CCTV camera. The police have requested that some lighting be installed around the outdoor classroom so that if anyone did decide to congregate there, then it would be quite obvious and they could be seen, and as part of natural surveillance it would be quite clear that there were people gathering there.
John?
Just that, as I say, it's going to be quite expensive, some of the equipment to put in, and as I say, it's in a residential area, so I'd have thought that some type of security camera or something would be ideal for the surveillance of the place.
Maybe as part of the renewal of CCTV in the Town Centre, which is supposedly being brought forward to members, a CCTV system could be encouraged to be located within the immediate vicinity of the park. David, did you want to add something?
It's really just to point out paragraph 2.2, where Police Scotland were consulted about this but had no objections, subject to LED lighting for the outdoor classroom, and that's covered by condition 1 on page 79.
Okay, so Jane Maitland?
Yes, it is covered, but it's not clear that we're not going to have problems with LED lighting on the whole time. Another councillor in this room and I have been harangued by people not liking LED lighting on the whole time, and I would want to be sure that the proposal would be motion sensitive lighting. I think that should be part and parcel of it. We really don't want LED lighting on the entire time. I do appreciate this in the middle of the town, so it's rather a different issue to what we normally get when people complain about having lighting on. But while I'm absolutely pro the idea of having lighting, let's not have it on the whole time.
I note that there's a strict condition about how it's directed within the papers, and obviously that PIR, whatever you want to call it, have been considered, so it's something that we can discuss it if we get to that stage, Jane. Questions for the case officers? Any other questions for the case officers? Andy and then Jim McComb.
Just so we're absolutely clear, Chair, and Pat, the tree issue is not part of this application, am I right?
You're absolutely right, and you were told that by the case officer right at the outset. You're quite right, Andy. Jim McComb.
Thanks, Chair. The site is beside 2 fairly busy roads. Are we satisfied that there is no issue of air pollution?
It's an existing play park. What's being proposed will remain a play park. There's no greater risk than already exists of pollution at the site.
Right, Jim.
Have we carried out any air pollution monitoring?
David will maybe reply to this, Pat.
As Pat said, it's an existing park, so it's not a material planning consideration. Whether or not the applicants have done that, I can't comment.
Other questions for case officers? No, in that case, we have 3 registered speakers for this particular item, I have agreed for Mr. Dunlop to have his say in his turn. The first speaker is Ms. Carol Hastings. Carol, if you'd like to come forward, please. Carol, you'll have 3 minutes to make your presentation. I remind you with 30 seconds to go, just to draw your presentation to a conclusion, and just whenever you're ready.
For 33 years. I thank you for allowing me to raise my 4 objections to the proposed development at Catherine Street Park. Firstly, let me say that the premise of inclusive play equipment being sited in the park we have absolutely no objections to. Our first objection is the removal of the 10 mature trees in the park, as all of the trees on the horticulturalist report are the same age, physiological condition and expected lifespan of 30 to 40 years. And each tree that's not scheduled for removal are to have maintenance work of varying degrees from remedial to extreme. I feel reconsideration of the scheduled disruption should be considered. The report does not say that the trees for removal are dangerous, just that if left without maintenance, the trees may snap. I'm also concerned that each of these mature trees, which filter the pollution from one of the busiest commuter and transport routes into town, will be removed. The air quality will suffer drastically. Also, that each of the said trees also remove 110 litres of water from the ground. That equates times 10 to a tonne of water. Where is it going to go? My second objection is to the increased traffic and increase in parking in an area which is at the moment saturation point by early morning, and continues to be so for the whole of the working day. I notice that the council roads officer has no objection, as the police have no objection either. But as the police, through have lack of resources and manpower, abdicated any responsibility to ensure that the regulations in the Zone C, which encompasses the park, are actually adhered to, and they will only attend if the parked vehicle overstaying the time is causing obstruction. Many parked cars now don't even display the disc, as they know that nothing will happen to them for overstaying. This does not help the residents who each year have to apply for a permit to park in the vicinity of their home, and more often than not can't even get a parking space on the street in that home vicinity. This will only become worse if the park is mooted as a destination park afforded by its all-inclusive status. Please consider how you will rectify this before you add to an extreme situation, as driving round in circles looking for a parking space does nothing for the environment or personal well-being. As the frustration escalates, and on some days the air quality in the vicinity of the park is so bad and the fumes from the vehicles is extremely strong because of the traffic. My third objection is the porta cabin, which I feel is not in keeping with the ethos and woodland nature of the park in the conservation area, and will detract from the area in general. Likewise, the outdoor learning centre is an unnecessary addition to the park and could give scope to antisocial behaviour in the later part of the day, given to where it will be situated, albeit with LED lights. It will still be in a secluded area and not fully visible. These are my objections. I hope you'll take into account my concerns, as what you decide today will impact on the lives of my neighbours and me for a very long time. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Can you just wait 1 minute, please, in case anyone has a question for you? Any members got questions for Carol? In that case, thank you very much for your presentation. I'd be grateful if you'd retake your seat. Alistair Dunlop, please, you'll need to come round, Alistair. Please, aye. Same arrangement for you, Alistair. 3 minutes. I'll give you a reminder, 30 seconds to go just to try.
I'm Alistair Dunlop, State 2 Lovers Walk. There's a couple of things I'd like to raise. The parking situation in the surrounding area is horrendous, chronic. We can't get parked anywhere near our house just now because of the usual place. They just keep going on and on. There's staff parked there from 8 in the morning till 4:30, 5 o'clock at night. You can't get near your house. So obviously there's going to be a lot more people at this park. What's the situation with the parking facilities for the staff and the visitors for this? Also, the Mews Lane, we've only got information back, excuse me, the Mews Lane was owned by the 3 houses at the top of Lovers Walk. I've only got this information, Graham, that it was a council land grab in 1989. We just got that during the week. So we're going to be acting on that. From the porta cabin's going to be placed there. That's what I'd like to say. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just please give a minute in case members have a question. Any question, members, for Alistair? In that case, thank you very much, sir, for the presentation. We now have Ms. Kelda Platt, the agent. Will you come forward, Kelda, please? You'll have the same 3 minutes. I'll remind you with 30 seconds to go just to for your presentation and inclusion. And again, if you'd remain, please, in case members have a question for you.
Hello, my name is Kelda Platt. I'm a landscape architect for Munro Landscape, and I've been working on the proposals for Catherine Street Park. I'd just like to talk about the design briefly and respond to some of the comments. The park at Catherine Street is a pocket of green space within a built-up area. It contains mature trees and some play equipment, both slightly dilapidated and in need of attention, but providing a valuable resource to the community and wider area. The connection to the usual place cafe creates a unique resource, and the opportunity to match the accessibility standards of the cafe with access and equipment in the park creates the potential to develop a very special place. Catherine Street Park has been designed to retain and enhance the existing natural character of the green space. Structures and surfaces have been designed, placed around the existing trees, and will be built to sit lightly on the ground with minimum disturbance. Surfaces have been designed to allow access to nature at close proximity, with decking, meeting and surrounding trees and introducing a range of natural safety surfaces sympathetic to the park and surrounding conservation area. Equipment has been chosen to allow a range of play experiences, but also to enhance users' connections to the natural environment. Standard play equipment will also be combined with woody materials for groups to build bug hotels and small dens, and the construction of retained planters will allow users of all abilities to operate and take part in ongoing maintenance. The overall aim is to enhance nature connections, play potential, biodiversity, aesthetic attractiveness and functionality. New paths will provide access into and around the park, enabling use by a wider range of people. The new structures and equipment will allow the community to develop, engage with the park and enable gardening groups to create and grow the planting spaces. There have been a number of concerns from residents during the planning process, which the group have listened to and considered how the scheme could be adapted in response. A number of the concerns are out with the scope of the proposals, such as treatment of trees, and a number of other concerns are responded to within the planning officer's report. However, there will be some amendments to use of future access to Mews Lane, where an occasional access gate was depicted. No park access or deliveries will use Mews Lane during the construction period. A gate will only be installed for occasional use if deemed to be needed in the future. Conditions regarding lighting to the outdoor classroom space, cladding to the porta cabin and maintenance plan are all achievable and will be included within construction and ongoing planning. Includers will enter into a service level agreement with the council as a part of the lease for the park, and this will set out responsibilities within the park. There will be
30 seconds to go, Kelda.
Okay. There will be a funded park coordinator post with funding already confirmed. The post will ensure all safety checks, ongoing maintenance, and also coordination with community engagement and activities. This will ensure a park which is clean, tidy, safe and healthy. It will also ensure that groups engage with the park in a proactive way, taking care of and developing planting areas and ensuring a well-loved and cared-for space for the long term.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Kelda? Elaine?
Yes, thank you. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the proposed use of the outdoor classroom. Is that something that schools will be using, or is that informal groups, or what's the anticipated use of that?
Well, the outdoor classroom, because the group will have a park manager post. The idea is that organised activities and groups can come from surrounding schools or the arts facility and use that space. And it will also provide shelter from the weather for all users of the park as well.
Thanks, Elaine. Ian Carruthers.
2 questions, Chairman. Will this increase the level of activity if this development goes ahead, and if it will, to what extent, please?
Well, we anticipate that obviously the park will retain the current use, and there should be an increase in activity due to the provision of the equipment. There hasn't been calculations on exactly how much that use will increase, but obviously the group would like there to be an increased use for the development.
Thanks, Ian. Any other? Jane?
Thank you. I understand what you're saying about the maintenance proposals. The water feature underneath what at the moment really actually can be a very dank, rather unattractive space. Notwithstanding everybody's delight in the trees, actually the activities that go on underneath I think are rather squishy and not entirely attractive. I don't think it's the first place you would think about taking your children to at the moment. So I hope very much that it can be improved. But the issue, for example, of the water feature, if you look at the current state of the park and think about putting in the water feature, which I accept is not very big. I mean, it's not huge, but nevertheless, I can imagine that becoming really deeply unattractive for everybody to deal with. So I would like to ask exactly how it is that you think that this will be an attractive addition to the local environment.
Yeah, no, I understand that it can. The park can be quite boggy. The grass can be quite muddy at the moment. And obviously a lot of the proposals try to deal with making that more accessible and usable by putting surfaces in, condensing some of that use and hopefully allowing some of the other grass spaces to become more usable and attractive. The water feature is a particularly interesting play feature. We have looked with the proposal to develop play equipment and facilities which are accessible but also sensory. And the water is a wonderful medium for children and users of all abilities and ages. The design of the water feature channels the water through wooden channels, which keeps it controlled into a contained, formed, granite set channel so that it reduces the spillage of the water, and then it drains into a connection to the main sewer system, which has been discussed with Scottish Water. So the idea is that the water is very contained. The ground around the water feature is a gravel surface to alleviate any kind of mud and puddling issues as well.
Happy with that, Jane? Have a drink of water. Any other questions for the agent? In that case, thank you very much for your presentation. Members are in session. Remember, we're not discussing trees. Jane?
Yes, absolutely avoiding the trees. The trees, as my fellow elected member said, are nothing to do with this application. I have to say, I think probably that notwithstanding the anxieties that people have, this is the right use for an area next to the usual place. I think it's absolutely appropriate. And I do welcome it. I rather wish it wasn't exactly where it is, but it is where it is, and I think we should probably accept the recommendation as it stands.
Is that a motion from you? Okay. Is that a motion? Do you have any supporter of that motion? John Martin, and then that.
I'll support that motion, even though I still have reservations about the security without the CCTV and that, but hopefully if there's an upgrade in the CCTV, there will maybe be a means of getting it to actually cover the park. But as a park at present, and beside the usual place with their all-inclusive facilities, I think it's the ideal place for it.
Okay, thanks, John. So we have a motion from Jen Maitland, seconded by John Martin. Okay, well.
Sorry, Chair, could I just clarify, is Councillor Maitland seeking for a motion censor as part of Condition 1?
Are you happy with that, John Martin? Aye. So John has supported that as well. I had an indication from Archie and then David James. Okay, David James.
Thank you, Chair. This is a pocket of green space, which we've heard from the agent, and I agree with that. And it's right in the middle of a sort of polluted and hectic area where a tranquil sort of area would be very nice to have and hold. And yet we're ramping up here with a classroom, gardening, increase of play, lighting, and probably some other things I've forgotten as well. And it will become, well, it would seek to become a destination park, but you probably would struggle to actually get there if you're coming by car, but you could come by other means. So in total, I think it's more a loss of amenity rather than a gain of amenity. So I would be against the proposal as it is. I mean, if there was a quieter proposal, maybe I'd support it, but not this one. Thank you.
So is that an observation, or are you placing an amendment?
That is my amendment, yeah. It's a loss of amenity to the residents in the locality.
David says it's loss of amenity to local residents. Can you just embellish on that with Lucy, please?
Can you just confirm, are you refusing the application based on the loss of amenity?
The reason why it should be refused, yes.
Okay, that's noted.
Thank you.
Okay, do you have a seconder for that? Ian Carruthers? Okay, so we have a motion and amendment. Let's go to the vote, Lucy, please.
Point of clarity, Chair. I'm a bit concerned about the reason for the the amendment to refuse. It's a park. It's going to be a park. What's the
We just had advice from David Sutty that it fits with general policy OP1.
I mean, it is obviously an existing park, but I think the argument would, if I'm paraphrasing Councillor James correctly, it's the change and the increase in the activity would have an adverse effect on the residential amenity of nearby neighbours, therefore making it contrary to policy OP1.
Somebody else indicated to speak. Was it you, Jane? So, if there are no other members looking to make any observations, we have a motion and an amendment. Just remind the members what they are, please, Lucy, and then we will go to the vote.
Okay, I have got a motion put forward by Councillor Maitland and seconded by Councillor Martin, and that's to go with the recommendations in the report, but with the added condition to include that there would be motion sensor lighting. And we have an amendment from Councillor James and seconded by Councillor Crothers to refuse the application on the basis of loss of amenity and that it would be contrary to policy OP1. Are we ready to go to the vote?
Yep.
Councillor Dempster.
Motion.
Councillor Campbell.
Motion.
Councillor Blake.
Amendment.
Councillor Doogie Campbell.
Motion.
Councillor Crothers.
Amendment.
Councillor Drybra.
Motion.
Councillor Fairbairn.
Amendment.
Councillor Ferguson.
Motion.
Councillor Juthdy.
Motion.
Councillor Hislop. Councillor James. Councillor Lever.
Motion.
Councillor Maitland.
Motion.
Councillor Martin.
Motion.
Councillor McComb.
Amendment.
Councillor McKee.
Motion.
Councillor Murray.
Motion.
And Councillor Young.
Motion.
And I can confirm that the motion carries with 13 votes to 5, and therefore members have agreed to go with the recommendations with the condition added that to include motion sensor lighting.
Thank you, Lucy. We go on to agenda item number 7. It's appeal decision for information and noting at Tarbreoch Dairy, Kirkpatrick, Durham. The application was dismissed. Okay, we go back to agenda item number 4. As I understand matters, the objector that was having difficulty with his access to the intranet has been able to write down the points he wants to make, and as long as he is happy to continue, we will progress with this application today. It may not be what he hoped to do, but it will still allow him to get his point across. Is that a fair summation, Mr. Lafferty? Pardon? Yeah, we accept that, but we are where we are today. So, if that's the case, we will proceed today. Are you happy to proceed today? Well, it's up to members, aye. That's what you'd hoped for. So it's up to members. Now remember, I've declared an interest. But in the interest of fairness, it's about time for a comfort break. But before you do, you either continue with this one agenda item or you have a comfort break. But before that, you have to decide what to do with the complaint that's been lodged today that this applicant cannot present the way he would, this objector cannot present the way he'd want to. Councillor Ferguson?
Just a bit of clarity, please, either from governance or from David. Is it the responsibility of the objector or the supporter to actually provide for themselves whatever it is they want to talk with, to use, whatever? Or I totally get his point. You know, we need to hear his view, but is that our responsibility, right, or is it his own responsibility as the current things stand? And I'm not going to talk about the council Wi-Fi because that's a hobby horse I've had for a long time as well. So
I think the issue will be whether or not he was advised in advance that he couldn't, or whether he was advised on what mechanism he could use. But it's up, Lucy.
Yeah, I would agree. Because obviously governments aren't involved in what happens in advance, so I'll pass that to David. But it's something that I think maybe going forward that I would advise that we need to make it clear to members of the public that at the moment there isn't a Wi-Fi facility. Perhaps it's the case that we haven't done that on this occasion, and therefore it may have to be deferred. But it's up to members and the chairman to decide what happens.
Councillor Driver.
Chair, we have seen in the past where objector slides have actually come as part of the presentation. Now, there must be a written piece of evidence or something like that to say to objectors, if you wish to have that in here, then you send it in advance. Now, we have seen here presentations of objectors before, so there must be something in place already for that. Now, it's up to the objectors to do that. I'm not sure where we're going with this.
David City.
The Planning Applications Committee came into being in December 2010, and we've consistently had a practice, and it is only a practice, there's no statutory legal requirement to allow people to speak at committee, of allowing people to do so. This is the first instance in which anybody has come along without a presentation, either printed out in their head or on their phone. We've never had that issue. If members want, we can no doubt put that in the guidance note, but the guidance note does get sent out to all representatives and makes it very clear that they have to, within no later than 48 hours before the meeting, have submitted any electronic documents that they wish put into the presentation. So obviously, it doesn't say anything about Wi-Fi access in the meeting, because it's this is not a public building in the same way that, say, a public library is. The only offer that is made is for people to speak at committee. It doesn't say that you will have Wi-Fi access at this meeting. We can clarify that in the guidance notes, but as I say, this is the first instance that this has occurred.
Jane Maitland.
Well, Chairman, I was simply going to say that I have sympathy with the objector who will be may be disappointed. Nevertheless, we perhaps have already inconvenienced members of the public by rearranging the agenda, which actually normally we don't do. There are already objectors here whom we would inconvenience were we to do anything other than hear this today, and I suggest strongly that we continue as you had proposed earlier on.
So you have a proposal that you continue, you proceed. Is that... Governance would like an opportunity to take advice. Do you have a break for half an hour? The objectors that are here will simply be asked to bear with us. Ivor?
When governance are asking information, can we just check that, is there any legal comeback on us if we don't hear the presentation because we have missed out on an important piece of information that may have swung us one way or the other in the vote, just to clarify that point.
I'm sure Lucy will do that, because the whole basis of asking the question is to make sure that we do not place ourselves in a difficult situation that we can't redress, and that the opportunity is presented as much as possible to the objector to present the way he would want to. David?
My point of order is it's 2 hours to actually transfer a file. I think, unless I misunderstand the situation, I mean, what has transpired in the last 2 hours?
We decided to take the other agenda items to allow the objector to access the information elsewhere and come back. He's not satisfied, and Ivor's question's quite right. If he's not satisfied, we can't compromise as council. We have to find out whether or no what actions we take moving forward are appropriate. Yeah, I know, I see that. So Lucy will seek advice, and after a 30-minute recess, this committee will determine whether or no this agenda item is dealt with today and on what basis. So we have a 30-minute break. I'm sorry to the objectors that are here. You will have to wait a little longer before we decide whether or not to proceed today. 30-minute break. Come back at 1:10. Thank you again, both members of the public and members, for your forbearance in this particular matter. We now come back to the issue of agenda item 4. Lucy has sought professional advice from the governance officer and a monitoring officer. And Lucy will advise you what his advice is. Lucy?
Okay, and just in consideration, we have there is no legal requirement to hear anybody. We're actually one of the few councils that do have speakers at our planning committee. From the information I have, I understand that everything has been done to accommodate this objector. He was offered the opportunity to go into a hotspot, possibly email the documents, but for whatever reasons unknown to me, he's decided against doing that. He'd advised one of our officers that he had made the points he wanted to make, written them down. But things obviously changed before lunchtime, so reminded that the application should be heard today, and then it is up to the objector whether he still wants to take part and raise his objections. But it's over to members and the chairman to decide.
So members, Jeff?
It actually says in the guidance notes, no written or printed material may be circulated to the meetings that cannot legally be taken into account by the committee in reaching a decision. So I would say that actually showing photographs is circulating material.
I think, just to be clear, as I understand, it's the fact that the objector had brought a tablet along with his presentation on the tablet for him to read out rather than to show, and had assumed incorrectly, unfortunately, that there was no publicly available Wi-Fi in the building and therefore had no access to it. But as Lucian said, governance have offered alternatives which haven't been taken up.
Ian Carruthers?
Thanks, yeah. I did speak to the representative. I tried to tether, and there seems to be a problem for whatever reason. Again, he was got to send the photographs through, but I think he has said, I think we've given every opportunity we possibly can, and ultimately at the end of the day after the evidence, but I think he still looks to be speaking. But it's just a photographic evidence, but there may well be photographs of our own that can be used for his particular case. I'm not sure, but maybe address it at the time, but quite keen to proceed with it, Chairman, to see how we get on.
Are you proposing that he proceed?
I would propose that we to proceed, and that's what I've heard otherwise. I think it's the right thing to do. If we get to a point in time where we think we're being compromised in regards to information, we can make that decision at that point, but I think we do have to proceed today, at least to hear the representations and decide at that point if we feel the need.
Sorry, are other members likewise minded? So the committee have agreed to proceed today. Okay, thank you. In that case, I will vacate the chair and thank John.
Thank you, members, for being patient. This application is for the erection of 61 dwelling houses, including formation of new access roads, parking, landscaping and suds drainage system at the land east of Queen's Road, Sanquhar. The reference number is 18/1041/full, and the recommendation is to approve subject to conditions. And here to give his presentation is Andrew Robertson, the case officer. Andrew.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this application for 61 houses is located to the rear of Queen's Crescent in Sanquhar, to the south of the primary school, and that's shown on the slide there. That indicates the location of the development. Start by showing photographs of the site and surrounding area. So this is starting at the south end of Queen's Crescent, and this shows an existing access that serves some industrial units located in that part of the area. This shows Queen's Crescent and its relationship with the access that serves those units. And this is the access road that leads into the proposed site, and the industrial units are on the right-hand side of the photograph. This is the site itself, so this is looking north. So you can see the primary school is in the background there, and this boundary wall denotes the eastern site boundary. This is looking east, so this is actually looking towards property. So you've got the site in the foreground, stone wall, and to the rear in the background are properties on Macron Court. This gives quite a good view of the site. So this is looking north, and it's effectively the green field denoted here. That's the eastern boundary, and you've got properties here on Queen's Crescent. This is taken looking at the site from, there's various informal footpaths that you can walk through the field to access the adjoining residential areas. This has actually come from the residential development to the east, and it accessed through the field, and you can walk through the field into the site and the surrounding areas. So this is the northern part of the site. This is the primary school, and this is also an area of the part of the site as well. And this is looking at the northern area of the site. Primary school on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side is the rear of properties on Queen's Road. This is the rear of properties on Queen's Road, and this is where a proposed access point is proposed, which we'll show details of in due course. And this is looking south across the site. This is the existing junction on Queen's Road to Queen's Crescent. There's another photograph of the junction. This is the access between. This is an access to the property. We've labelled it as Kenreaver because that's what it shows on our mapping system. Although it's also referred to as Beauvais in representations. That's on the right-hand side, and the property on the left is Barview, and this is a driveway to that property, which is where a proposed access road is proposed. And this photograph shows a property on the opposite side called Unworth House, and that's the access to that property, which is just here. In terms of the proposed development, there's 61 houses contained in 27 blocks. I've now split that up into 3 separate slides because it's a bit difficult to see on that. So this is the northern part of the site. There's a proposed access here on Queen's Road, and this is the northern part of the site. We go in, there's a proposed square feature, and this is a proposed drainage basin to accommodate suds. This is the middle part of the site, and this is the access at the south end of Queen's Crescent. And the southern part of the site is shown here with some areas of open space proposed here and here. And this is just an illustrative drawing of the site. This is taken from the applicant's design and access statement. This doesn't take into account the slight changes in the layout, so it is just for illustrative purposes, just to give you a 3D view of the site. As part of the application, there's been various objections to the proposed roundabout, and particularly in respect of lack of detail. And as a result of that, officers asked the applicant to supply swept path tracking, mainly to indicate that the proposed roundabout could actually function. And this shows refuse vehicles that it could manoeuvre into and out of the site from various directions. So the top, the three at the top effectively shows a refuse vehicle exiting the site in the three directions it could go to. The bottom three shows a refuse vehicle if it was coming up Queen's Road. The top three here show the refuse vehicle if it was approaching down Queen's Road, so into the site, to Queen's Crescent, and to carry on down Queen's Road. And the three at the bottom shows a refuse vehicle if it was heading up Queen's Crescent, so to carry on to Queen's Road, to go down Queen's Road, or into the site. And this shows vehicle tracking through the site and how a refuse vehicle would manoeuvre around the various turns, in particular the junction at the south, which is shown here. Proposed boundary treatment is generally in the form of 1.8 metre high boundary fences at the front of the site, by a 0.3 metre trip fence, and between the properties by a 1.2 metre high timber fence. This shows the amenity space plan of where open space would be accommodated in the development. There's two areas in yellow are taken out of the open space contribution, particularly this area here, as officers weren't comfortable with this being an amenity area due to its location at the rear of properties. But the green areas indicate those areas which can accommodate amenity space. And this is a landscaping plan which shows proposed landscaping of the site, although at this stage it's considered that this needs to be probably developed further. It particularly doesn't show the detail of what could be in the amenity space areas. This is the proposed square into the site with some various amenity features and public realm. And in terms of the houses that are proposed on the site, this shows the elevations of them. So this is mainly there's 43 two-bedroom houses with some slight variation in design and materials. So this is then block 2, which is very similar to the previous one, with just the orientation of the front doors changed. This one is block 3, which is in the northern part of the site. So this one's proposing brick as the material to the walls. And that's the rear view of that block. This is block 4. Blocks 5, 9 and 10. So this is similar to the first block, but with a brick facade. The same with these blocks. It's 14 and 15. Block 16. With this one's proposing some timber cladding on the gable end as well. This is a bungalow block and a similar bungalow block. Elevations to block 21. Block 22 but with render to the walls as opposed to brick. Block 26, which is a flat, as is block 27. And that's the rear of that block. In terms of sections through the site, this effectively shows looking north towards the northern part of the site. It's just a shame that the slide hasn't really shown up too much, but that's again looking north, but from the middle of the site. And section CC again is looking north. And you can just see the drop in land levels at the eastern side of that elevation. And some more sections as well. So in conclusion, officers have considered this is an acceptable development of an allocated housing site, but subject to the submission of more details which are stated in the conditions, and it's therefore recommended for approval subject to those conditions. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Is any elected members got questions? Ivor?
It was on the swept paths of the refuse vehicle. I think it was the lorry coming, would it be northeast up Queen's Road, turning south onto Queen's Crescent. The bottom right.
So which direction? So it's in.
It's the bottom right.
So that's showing refuse vehicles coming up Queen's Road. That's
Yeah.
to Queen's Road. Is that the one that you want to
The bottom right.
This one here.
Yeah. That's performing an illegal move, coming the wrong way round the roundabout. But it's still an illegal. If you cross over a mini roundabout the wrong way, that's the wrong. You're actually going in the way it's going. You're actually going against the flow of traffic on that picture. So is that saying it can't be achieved legally?
Well, I would imagine it would be a mini roundabout. The whole idea of these is for larger vehicles should be able to go over the top. I'll let Andrew if he's got an answer for that. Sorry. Ken. Okay, Ken will give you an answer, Ivor.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the manoeuvre is shown. It wouldn't be illegal as it stands. The thing about mini roundabouts is that they do permit vehicles to overrun the centre island, and that's a normal part of mini roundabout design, but you wouldn't clearly make a manoeuvre such as that. That certainly wouldn't work. It should also be pointed out that the manoeuvre is more indicative than anything else, insofar as the waste management teams decide their own routes around these developments, and they do that on the basis of how easy the manoeuvres are and what's most efficient from their point of view. And they certainly wouldn't be making a manoeuvre like that, I'm absolutely certain.
You okay with that, Ivor? Jane?
Well, just to back up Councillor Hislop, it might well be the case that the mini roundabout, it's possible to go over the top of it, but allow me to assure you that when I went over the top of the St Michael's Road roundabout, because it is extremely difficult to turn from the town into the St Michael's Street garage without going over the top of the mini roundabout, I was accosted and stopped by a young policeman who said to me that that was an illegal manoeuvre and I should not do it again.
Well, at least you've got that on record, Jane. Thanks very much for that. Are there any other questions for the case officer? No. Okay, we'll go to the first objector, Dr. David Rushton. If you'd like to come forward, please. And you have 5 minutes to give your presentation, and I will ask you to come to a conclusion with 30 seconds to go in your own time. Yeah, sure.
I don't tend to start the clock until you've started speaking, so.
Could you put your mic on, please? Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I have some general points and some specific points and some general points. The first one is that I think the Suds area, fenced off though it might be, is potentially a dangerous area on the site. As I understand it, it's effectively a land drain to take surplus water, and the site is fairly saturated. My thinking is, and this is based on work elsewhere, that the less ugly solution would be for this to be covered and for that area to be made into a recreation area, a play area, or some other community space. I'm somewhat disheartened as an ex-community council member from Edinburgh that there is no obvious community gain being seen on this site, nothing to benefit. The limited number of homes with more than 2 bedrooms is not consistent with sustaining families in the area, either to remain or for those who are in the area to relocate from existing 2 or 3 bedroomed accommodation in other parts of the town. The buildings also do not reflect the vernacular buildings in the area. Not least, I think wood, again from past experience in housing in Edinburgh, is a very, very difficult material to maintain, and if funds for the organisation that's putting these up are not sufficient, we look to see tatty buildings after a period of time. Finally, Sanquhar brick is a well-known brick form, and it was used for Ibrox Stadium. What we see here are a series of tan bricks that look like they've come out of the southeast of England. I think that's not vernacular, it's not good enough. So the development, as I see it, is poor quality, and it doesn't enhance the area in any way. However, I think the plan falls flat on the basis of the council's own intimations about how planning should take place in relation to housing. Reading from the council's local housing strategy, 2018 to 2024, one of the first points, most importantly perhaps because it's the beginning, is delivering high quality, sustainable and affordable housing to address an unmet need is a key policy aspiration for Dumfries and Galloway Council and its partner organisations. I will say here, the key here is unmet need. There is no evidence of an unmet need for 61, mostly 2-bedroom homes in Sanquhar. In the foreword to the local housing strategy, the first priority listed is build the local economy. The impact of a 10% increase in the population should be evident in the council's ambition to build this economy. The pressure to build on this available site seems to come from a broader, possibly Hollywood objective to meet Scottish regional expectations and not from the local housing or economic needs in Sanquhar. I think we're having this dumped on us. Without evidence of economic expansion, the older homes in Sanquhar could be left vacant as tenants move to the new housing. I think the council's local housing strategy is absolutely right because it advances an integrated approach, setting housing within the local economic, social and educational context, and I'm advised by the planning department that they are not allowed or empowered to take account of social and economic needs in framing planning. I've spoken with them about this. New housing requires new jobs to be in the pipeline. New housing demands an increased provision for school and health and police services, possibly extra buildings for the schools, certainly additional play facilities, and for children and young people to be able to be entertained currently who are there, as well as those who are incoming. Most, if not all, public services in Sanquhar are overstretched currently. Adding 10% to the Sanquhar population cannot be accommodated economically or socially unless there is an economic and social investment put in place beforehand and before this build is even contemplated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could you just please remain in your seat in case any members wish to ask questions? Members? No. Thank you very much. The next person to speak is Mrs. Marion Miller on behalf of Miss Paula Staley. Thank you. You have 5 minutes to give your presentation. Because it's a presentation, members won't ask any questions. Okay, and I'll give you 30 seconds to wind up your presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have read the 28-page committee report prepared by Andrew Robinson and published on the 9th of January, and consider it to be disingenuous and overly optimistic, as it does not acknowledge that the development required 2 access points, one via an as yet unbuilt mini roundabout on Queen's Road and the other off Queen's Crescent by the old creamery. At present, the viability of these access points is in no way guaranteed, and I fail to see why the Council is pressing ahead with attempts at approving a scheme without having done the necessary groundwork to ensure said viability. Mr. Robinson has suggested that the 2 previous attempts at building on this greenfield site in 2010 and 2013, although not granted, contained very little by way of comment from the Roads Planning Department, but this is not the case. He states in 4.26 on the committee report, this was achieved to the satisfaction of roads planning officers at the time, and in 4.27, roads officers confirmed no objections to the details. I see little evidence that the auto-track layouts as envisaged in the present application are not without a number of flaws. For example, roundabout vehicles tracking layout, Queen's Crescent to proposed road 2 of 2, shows an illegal manoeuvre by which a vehicle approaching the roundabout turns directly left rather than circumventing the roundabout. Another layout shows a track running right over the roundabout itself. Indeed, the 19th December Roads Planning Team Leader memo, which I hope the members have all read, along with other accompanying evidence, states further details and plans are required to be in order to assess and approve the design. I might add that the consultation document prepared by Wiley Lodge and published on the 28th of November doesn't even mention the mini roundabout for all its importance to this development. This is very strange, as I was in my front garden when the men who prepared this were surveying the seed, and I spoke to them at length. Time does not permit me to go into further detail of other areas, like the demolition of an existing building which revealed a quantity of asbestos. But I have major issues with what I see as a rushed job which will have no good outcome. A far superior solution would lie in developing various brown sites in the town, which would both improve the appearance of the town and come with ready-made access and other amenities. We need jobs in Sanquhar, not more homes.
Thank you very much. Could you please take your seat, and I'll ask Mr. Raymond Milner to come forward. Again, you have 5 minutes, and I will let you know when you've got 30 seconds to bring your presentation to a close. And if you'd like to remain in your seat so that the elected members can ask questions. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Ray Milner and I live at Amworth House, Queen's Road, Sanquhar. I refer today to the following issues regarding the proposed mini roundabout. The vehicle manoeuvres on 4 of the auto-track profile drawings are downright dangerous. Proposed new road to Queen's Crescent, Queen's Road southbound to Queen's Crescent, Queen's Crescent to Queen's Road southbound, and Queen's Crescent to the proposed new road. In fact, Queen's Crescent to the proposed new road and Queen's Road southbound to Queen's Crescent show the vehicle navigating the mini roundabout in the wrong direction, anti-clockwise, which is an illegal manoeuvre and extremely unsafe. The only auto-track vehicle profile that has no overrun or does not cross over to the wrong side of Queen's Road is Queen's Road southbound to Queen's Road northbound. This is because it is a straight run with no deflection. However, this is a health and safety issue. Queen's Road and Queen's Crescent are on a 221 bus route, where currently a single-decker bus is in operation. This also exceeds 10 metres in length. This vehicle, unlike refuse vehicles, run on a regular timetable 7 days a week and are passenger carrying. Therefore, safety is of paramount importance. If this vehicle were to overrun, transverse the roundabout on the wrong side of the road, or go round the roundabout in the wrong direction, then the safety of the passengers would be put at risk. The auto-track vehicle profile drawings do not show the full picture, as there is a steep incline when travelling north to the roundabout from Queen's Road south, and there is also a bend just before reaching it, making a clear view of the roundabout impossible. The Queen's Road, Queen's Crescent area currently has a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, but I would say that at present at least 75% of all vehicles exceed this, including buses, making traffic calming measures essential if this limit is to be maintained. The narrowness of the roads just wide enough for 2 cars to pass, and lack of footpaths, those that do exist are not wide enough for 2 people to pass when walking in opposite directions, mean that a low speed limit must be adhered to for safety reasons. Should a roundabout be located in this position, then the entrance to Amworth House would be a 5th arm. The roundabout also crosses the land that forms part of the title deeds of Amworth House and gets extremely close to the stone partition wall. This will undermine the integrity of the wall and make it very likely to be hit by passing vehicles. In conclusion, I would urge the committee to read the submissions and recommendations by the public and other organisations before making a decision, and not base it solely on the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is any members' questions? No, thank you very much. Could you please... Oh, sorry, David McKee.
If you don't mind, Chair, do you consider a roundabout is not necessary in that area?
Pardon?
Do you consider that a roundabout is not necessary in that area?
I don't think it's a viable proposition, no. I don't know what other sort of junction you'd put there, but I don't think a roundabout is the best solution.
If there's no other questions, please take your seat. And could I call Mrs. Marion Milner back, please, to give your own presentation? And if you'd like to remain after your presentation so members could ask questions, and I will let you know when you've got 30 seconds to conclude. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As you know, my name is Marion Milner, and I live in Amworth House, Queen's Road, Sanquhar, location directly opposite the proposed access road to the new development, and my drive would enter directly onto the proposed roundabout. My land ends at the actual road edge. I have at no time ever been had a consultation on these plans. I will refer the committee to thoroughly look at the full planning documents to get a true reflection of the representations and their comprehensive concerns. Today I would like to address the following issues. The fact that, as mentioned in my representation letters of the 6th of August and 12th of December 2018, the access to our property would be blocked by the roundabout with obstruction due to increased volumes and types of traffic. There would be 4 major arms converging onto the proposed mini roundabout, plus our privately owned driveway, which would in effect make 5 arms. As stated in the Department of Transport's County Surveyors Society Mini Roundabouts Good Practice Guide, the installation of mini roundabouts at junctions with 4 or more arms are not recommended, even on local roads. 4 and 5 arm mini roundabouts have a variable safety record and may not perform as well as alternative junction types. For a mini roundabout to operate as intended, it is essential that the junction type be recognised and that drivers have adequate forward visibility of the junction. It is of great concern that this still has been an outstanding issue in previous planning submissions as well as this current one, and is still unresolved, especially as the current drawings show visibility does not meet current standards of safety, as referenced in the Planning Application Committee report and submitted by the case officer for Dumfries and Galloway Planning, point 4.31 under subheading Design and Layout. Also, Department of Transport and County Surveyors Mini Roundabouts Good Practice Guide states, although the design of a mini roundabout is intended to allow long or wide vehicles to traverse the central road marking, the continual overrunning by vehicles will cause tyre scuffing and the rapid deterioration of the mini roundabout road markings. Without regular inspection and maintenance, the central road markings will lose conspicity and drivers will not be able to determine the circular path around the roundabout. Another issue is that there would be a serious concern regarding safety for myself when I am mowing and maintaining my lawn at the front of my property, as should a 4-5-arm roundabout be placed there, overrunning due to the insufficient road space would be extremely dangerous to myself and other people passing by. And finally, though previous planning applications have been referenced in the committee report, it is important to note the same issues are outstanding at this stage in the current planning application as they were 9 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has any members got any questions? No, thank you very much. If you'd like to take your seat again, please. And could I ask Mr. Raymond Lafferty to come forward? Again, you have 5 minutes to put your presentation, and I will give you 30 seconds to let you know when you're coming to the conclusion. And if you remain in your seat so that people can ask questions, like the members can ask you questions. Thank you.
No worries. My name's Eamon Lafferty. I own and operate the only business that's going to be affected by this development. First and foremost, I'm not against the development. If there's a need for houses, then so be it. But I have several major concerns. The first one I'll start with is the one that you're showing on there. I own and operate this recovery business as well as a garage. We have 2 HGV recovery trucks, and we struggle to get them in and out in its current form, never mind as it's going to be. In the form that you have up there, you are showing a 6-wheel refuge truck. The road leading down Queen's Road leads to an industrial area. We should be able to bring down 45-foot trucks, HGV articulated trucks. We have one of them, but we have to keep it in Glasgow. We can't bring it down to Sanquhar with the roads as they are. As you are showing on that, the 6-wheel truck these are showing is 28 foot long, and it cannot negotiate the bends as it is. If you put in the roundabout, it's going to be an absolute danger. I don't know if any of the members here own or operate or have an HGV licence. I do, and I can't take an articulated truck down there. On the other point is the impact it's going to have on active autos. If you could maybe show the second for the bottom on the right hand side, that's our access road, which we currently own the solemn to that road. In the proposed development, they're going to have to come in, the developers, and rip that road up. At that time, our business will need to shut because we cannot operate our business because we load and unload vehicles, store vehicles on our land. That's what we do. I don't have an issue with shutting the business down for a certain period of time if they have to use that road and we can relocate back to Glasgow. I don't have a massive issue with that, but it's something that we could probably agree to. It's mainly the impact it's going to have on our business. That's what I'm looking for. Some sort of agreement to it or whatever. I'm not against the houses as they are, other than there's maybe too many 2-bedroom houses. On another note, I would like to have before, or a condition, I haven't even seen them yet, a pre-commencement condition in a neighbourhood, under the Neighbourhood Act, Planning Act 2017, and some negative conditions imposed before the development starts is to have the road winding, the infrastructure in place, mainly at our garage, to be quite honest. If that was done within a 6 or 8 week period, then we wouldn't mind, or I wouldn't mind, shutting our business down to facilitate that. What else do I want to say? The other problem I'm going to have is the earth movement on site. There's going to be considerable earth movement on site, and I want to know what the proposals are for 8-wheel trucks carrying, 25 tonne in and out of site. How are they going to access the site? Is it going to be on our road, or is it going to be through the roundabout? That's going to cause major health and safety issues for the pedestrians. If we can go back to maybe one of the, I couldn't upload the photographs that I've got, could we go back to some of the street scenes? If we just something that shows the road. Again, if you could do it. My photographs are better, but where if you could go back to that one that was there, where the pavements are and the lampposts are on the pavements down there are so narrow, it's near enough impossible even for one person to walk on the pavements. There is more than several people down there that have disabled invalid vehicles, and they have to drive on the road because they cannot drive safely on the pavements. This is going to be a massive issue, and I take it that out of the 61 houses, there's going to be 4 or 5% maybe disabled people who are going to have to, once they come out off the site, onto Queen's Road, onto Queen's Crescent, where do they go? How do they
You have 30 seconds to wind up.
Back onto the pavements? There's real health and safety issues down there that need to be sorted out, and I hopefully you don't grant this today and we can do further investigation, perhaps for the developer, into how they can accommodate everybody as they are a community, in brackets, they look after the community. We don't see that. They have actually took my company to court twice to try and stop us from allowing them to allow.
Could you come to a conclusion, please?
Which is very unfair for a community. I don't know what they're called, but anyway, they're a nightmare to deal with.
Okay, thank you very much. Any members got any questions? No? Oh, Ian?
I suppose just quick, I'm just trying
Could you please take your seat? One of the members has got a question for you.
I'm just trying to summarise, Chairman, what the thoughts were there. So, just so I understand, I picked up on everybody else's thoughts, I think, and probably something I put when we get into session. But so the constrained access, you're not happy with the roundabout, your vehicular access, and I think the method of work, the work in practice, how it will be phased. I think that's what I picked up in particular. Would that be right in saying? Is that the points? When some of the stuff I think we probably couldn't get into in part of the plan application, but so you've got concerns over your access, existing, how that will change the roundabout in particular, and the actual.
The real concerns over the health and safety. This company brought in a main contractor, Ashley, onto site, demolished a building that was riddled with asbestos, crushed it on site, and we all breathed that in. That's not what we want from main contractors. We want them to be health and safety aware and deal with the issues. I had to argue with the director of Ashley to get them to come down to site and try and cap the site. I told them the proposals, what they should have done was just imported soil and covered the site. All they done was send down a wheeled excavator and spread the crushed material over the site. We're all still breathing that in. Everybody knows the downside to breathing in asbestos. If you breathe in asbestos into your lungs, that stays there and it doesn't leave. I think that's very unfair to the people in Sanquhar.
Okay, thanks, Chairman. I'll pick up in session, most likely.
Okay. Jeff?
Can you tell me who owns the bushes which are overgrowing the footpath?
Oh, sorry, that's still stick there. Sorry. I'm not aware.
Can you tell me who owns the bushes which are overgrowing the footpath?
Yes, that is it DHGP, something like that. I have tried several times to buy that area of land off them. I've complained bitterly. On the post in the centre, you'll see a sign that says no dog fouling. The place is littered with them. There's probably more in there in a minefield. I've tried to buy that off them with the intention of building a house personally for myself to add security to my business, if you like. We've been in there and operating in there for over 10 years without any issues at all. But they refused point blank to sell it to me. That's who actually owns it. And they, as you can see with the photographs, they take no care of it at all. They come in and cut the grass twice or three times in a season, and the rest of it just gets left. It's wrong.
Are there any other questions? Okay, now you can take your seat, please.
Good
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you.
I would like to call Adam Bell, the agent. Would like to come over. And again, you have 5 minutes, and I will give you 30 seconds at the end to come to a conclusion. And if you remain in your seat so that elected members can ask questions after. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for letting me speak. My name's Adam Bell. I'm from Anderson Bell Christie Architects. We're based in Glasgow, but we work mainly with housing associations and community groups throughout Scotland and even in the north of England. We first worked with Cunningham Housing Association in 1995, and in 2018 we completed the third phase of a project in Ardrossan, which is now successfully occupied. Cunningham is an organisation which has been working with communities since its inception, with a strong track record creating high-quality homes. The association will be a key part of regenerating communities in the southwest of Scotland, enabling significant investment and providing affordable homes in well-designed and well-built communities. These proposals at Queen's Road are to create a loop road through the site, off which there are a number of quiet shared surface cul-de-sacs. The homes will all be 1 and 2 stories with a mixture of short terraces, semi-detached and cottage flat properties finished in a variety of brick, render and Eternit cladding board. The final details of the finishes, while detailed on the application drawings, are still to be approved by planning, so that's still something to discuss. The new homes are built to meet the Scottish Building Standards Silver Standard, which means they will be economic to heat, which is a key issue when we consider sustainable communities and fuel poverty. The site has a number of challenges for us as designers. There are some poor crown conditions due to historic shallow mining. This is an area which will need to be stabilised by grouting before the start of the construction works, which is a significant investment. The requirement for 2 means of access to the site means we have to create the roundabout on the existing junction. However, this idea has been approved for a previous application in the past by others, and it does create a safe access to all the existing and proposed properties. While there is a wider area zoned for housing use, only part of this area is owned by the association, so we're dealing with a slightly more limited site than we would have liked. There is a significant level change between the south and the north part of the site, meaning we have to work carefully to ensure road levels and drainage levels are properly designed. And finally, there were buildings in the site which are now safely demolished, which site investigation showed had significant asbestos contamination, which will also be made safe as part of these works. However, there were also strong features which we've worked hard to enhance as part of the project, such as connectivity to Sanquhar Town Centre and the Southern Upland Way, is improved by creating some more formal pathways through the site, and as part of these improvements is proposed to stabilise and repair the existing dry stone boundary wall to the east. Access from the south of Queen's Crescent improves access issues which some properties currently have, so that is a benefit to the neighbourhood. The existing layout of Queen's Crescent means that the backs of the existing dwellings face onto the open fields. By bringing our new road through the site means that buildings now will front onto the public open areas and improve privacy and security to the existing homes. Also, by creating an open cul-de-sac to the south of the site, we've created the opportunity for future development to the east and to the west to be accessed through this site, which could enhance connectivity with other neighbourhoods at some stage in the future. Now, I've also got some comments from the engineer, which just highlighting that that we are looking at the current site layout indicates a twin access from Queen's Crescent, Queen's Road. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of duplication here, via traditional junction at mini roundabout. Consideration given to the guidance contained within design for streets by providing gateway features, horizontal deflections, squares and zones designed to decrease segregation by providing increasingly shared and cooperative areas. Dumfries and Galloway Council are working with the principles set out in the National Policy Document Design for Streets, the principles of which result in a more design-led approach rather than standards-based submissions. Each submission is therefore assessed on its own merits using a more flexible and pragmatic approach which allows for a more fluid and flexible road layout. As a result, the site layout has been designed with a view to considering locality and place for pedestrians and movement of vehicles. The design intends to provide the 6 qualities considered appropriate for such schemes, thus being distinctive, safe and pleasant, easy to move around, welcoming, adaptable and resource efficient. Traffic speeds within the development will be restricted to 20 miles an hour. Queen's Road is
you have 30 seconds to come to a conclusion.
Thank you. Queen's Road is also traffic canned, therefore vehicle speeds in the area should be generally low. Vehicle tracking drawings being provided as part of the application, which indicates large refuse vehicles moving through the development site and negotiating the mini roundabout without restriction. Finally, we've looked at flooding and house floor levels, road levels and road geometry, all designed in such that water levels in extreme events will be contained within the carriageways and channeled towards the detention basin, which can hold and contain flows from the 1 in 200 year event. Extreme storm events will therefore
Okay,
be
thank you
contained
very
in the
much. That's
development
your
site.
5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any members got any questions to the agents? David?
Thank you, Chair. May I ask why 61 units and why predominantly 2-bed units?
It's 61 units because that seemed to be what would fit comfortably on the site. That gives we've got a site which is about 3.5 hectares, and so we've got a density of about 17 units per hectare. I think 2-bedroom units are generally the requirement that the client has for people looking for homes in the area. That's what they are asking to put onto the site based on their records.
Jane?
Thank you very much. You mentioned that one of the 6 qualities about developing an area such as this would be that it is distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if you could help me by talking me through what makes your design particularly distinctive.
What we've tried to do is, rather than make all the buildings the same, we've got the loop road that goes through the site, and then we have 3 different cul-de-sacs which are placed off the loop road. What we've tried to do is use the different materials in each of the shared surface areas there to try and create a little sense of neighbourhood in each one, so that each part of the development isn't replicated everywhere. So there are 3 sort of the different character areas within the design.
Chairman, if I could possibly then ask to follow up on that. One of the objectors has talked about Sanquhar brick and suggesting that you should be perhaps using something that was particularly distinctive to Sanquhar. Looking at the designs here, I have to say I don't actually really follow, so maybe you could help me by telling me why I should be approving this, because it is particularly distinctive to Sanquhar.
We're looking at even the photograph in front of us. There are a range of materials used in Sanquhar. Sometimes it's render, sometimes stone, sometimes painted render, and sometimes brick. So what we've tried to do is use the different materials so that each area has a distinctive character of its own within the new development. The materials that we've chosen to show on the drawings so far are generally red brick or a light coloured render. We've also shown some cladding boards, which are Eternit cladding boards rather than timber boards, as maybe some people have picked up. So they're a maintenance-free material. The colour of the brick we would propose to be a reddish colour to try and match in with the stone and the brickwork that is in Sanquhar. It is impossible to get an exact match of the old bricks that are there. The brickworks is not producing bricks anymore, so we're finding we have to get bricks from elsewhere. So we can only do our best to try and match what we can.
Ian?
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things I mentioned earlier, so I'll just try and tease them out now if I can. If not, I'll get it in session. Community gain, what would you see as being community gain? And there was something else mentioned which I was aware of in my mind, but it came out in regards to the local housing strategy. I've been at Sanquhar quite a few times, used to be a member of the housing committee, and it was always seemed as a place with not a large amount of need because of the depopulation in that area over the years. But fair enough. So if this was a private sector building these, I wouldn't be asking this question because it wouldn't be relevant. But I think with being a registered social landlord, I think it is relevant because of the level of grant that goes towards it from both council, Scottish Government. So just clarification in real terms, either for yourself or pick up in session in regards to local housing strategy and what it says in regards to the unmet need in this area.
Do you want to answer that?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. If you could just clarify the question.
The point, normally you build houses because there's a need. What was claimed earlier, there's not a need in this area for these houses. So as part of the local housing strategy, what we're saying that's identified within the local housing strategy, Dumfries and Galloway's. So I just wondered if you had any clarity on that. If not, I'll ask it in session from an officer.
I think that's probably a question
maybe,
session.
Yeah, it's a question that's beyond
my
knowledge.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Bell, you mentioned that asbestos contamination had been made safe. Can I ask, how was this done?
It was done by a registered contractor who, when we realised there was asbestos on the site, they went through a process of dealing with the material safely and removing it from site safely. And we've had to adjust the design of the project in order to avoid that particular area. Originally, we had planned to have some houses on the site of that building, so we've had to make some changes to the layout in order to accommodate the fact that we need to make that area safe by, and it will be made safe by capping the site of the original building, which has now been demolished.
So are you saying, Mr. Bell, that the asbestos remains on the site?
The asbestos that was above the ground has been safely removed. Anything that is below ground will be capped as part of this project.
So there is still asbestos on the site?
Yes, I think there is, yeah.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, there's obviously concerns about the functionality of the mini roundabout. And I notice in 431 makes reference to a stage 2 road safety audit being advised by officers, and it finishes saying it's therefore unfortunate this has not been progressed further. Is there any reason why this hasn't been progressed?
Well, we've had extensive discussions regarding the road layout so far and tried to progress that as far as we can at this stage to prove that the layout and the roundabouts and so on are safe to use. I think there's maybe another stage of work to do, but I think we've managed to demonstrate in principle that there is a good level of road safety designed into the project, and that there shouldn't be any concern about that.
Do you want to come back into
Yeah, that still doesn't justify why, on the advice of officers, that hasn't been progressed.
I'm not sure what hasn't been progressed. The
stage 2 road safety audit.
Yeah, I think that's something that we need to take on as the next stage of our work. We need to do much more detailed design work in order to take it to the next stage. But already we've taken the engineering drawings to a high degree of detail. But there's more work still to be done.
David James?
Thank you. If you don't receive permission today, will the capping of the contaminated area go ahead?
That's really would be something for the client. It's not something that I've got control over. But I'd assume that at some stage there is the site is zoned for housing use, and at some stage that the client, being the owner of the site, would want to progress with some development on the site.
Surely health and safety should come first.
You can't speak. Please don't interrupt. Please don't interrupt. Thank you. Does that answer your question, David? Okay, if there's no more questions for the agent, thank you very much. Members, we're now in session. Ian?
I wonder if I could just start. I did ask a community gain question, but it's maybe irrelevant. But and as far as, so we have a local housing strategy. If this goes ahead, I mean, I think just about all communities come across want new affordable housing, and it's absolutely an aspiration and ambition. But when it's taxpayers' money, usually there's a clear strategy, a need that needs met, and it's addressed accordingly. There was claims earlier, actually, it's more of a wider ambition. Whether that's the case or not, I don't know, from more of a centralised area. I'd just like to get the bottom of that, because I think local housing strategy, it's usually identified, it's been well known up in this kind of Sanquhar Cornwall area that there's kind of been depopulation for a number of years, but there may well be things happened recently that actually turns that round about, and the local housing strategy identifies that there is this level of need. I'd just like the reassurances, because it did spring some 2 or 3 memories for me when that was mentioned, that actually is a need that fulfills this level of housing being built.
Thank you, Ian. I agree with your sentiments there. My concern, I'd like to put this on the table now, is there's obviously been a lot of concern around the access to this particular site, and I would like to propose a site visit. So, but I'm willing to hear other members. Well, I'll put a motion on the table. Is there anyone minded otherwise? Elaine?
I would support that. I mean, I know Sanquhar quite well, but there's some issues, particularly around this bit here, that I'm not sure that I really have a handle on. And I think I would quite like to see that before we come to make the decision.
Ian?
Thank you. I've no objections to a site visit. I think it's quite appropriate. The one thing I would like to ask, assuming if we had a site visit, would come back to the next meeting. I notice there's nothing in this report that makes any reference to the school capacity. Nothing that I could see. And I think it's important that we had that information for the next meeting. It may very well have plenty of capacity, but we don't know that.
Yeah, similar to the previous application that we've seen, there was reference to school capacities. Is that something that we can, look into? Ian?
Support fully what you're saying, and as far as the site visit, I just wonder, I'll be very brief to you, I just wonder if we can look at the roads constraints, issues, concerns that have been raised in particular when we're on the site, as well as we'll look at the site location, what's in front of us here now, but I think we need to take the whole picture from the High Street right the way down.
Jane?
Well, I think Councillor Carruthers has actually pointed out we must be clear what we're doing, why we're going on a site visit. Now, we're going to deal with matters of access. Is that correct? Is that what we're doing? Right, okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. David?
I'm unconvinced for the need for this development. I know that's normally not a planning consideration, but if there was an overwhelming need for it, then I would be prepared to forget the lack of design quality, etc., but there isn't. So I don't myself need the site visit to know that I don't support this development as it is.
So are you putting in an amendment, David?
I'm not. Well, yes, that there should be no site visit.
And have you got a seconder? No. Ivor? So we've got a motion and an amendment. The motion is for a site visit. And your amendment, how are you worded that?
Deal with it today.
We deal with the application
yes,
right now. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Elaine, were you my seconder for the site visit? You was. Okay. Okay, Lucy, if you'd like to take us through.
Okay, we have a motion put forward for a site visit proposed by Councillor Campbell and seconded by Councillor Murray. And we have an amendment by Councillor James and seconded by Councillor Hislop that there is sufficient information to determine the application today. I'm just going to proceed.
Just point of clarity, because I think the site visit in particular is around about access and accessibility, just so we're clear about that, because I think when we get there, if it's for those reasons, I'm keen to see, because that's the concerns that I've heard predominantly that I can't get answered here today.
Yeah, the proposal was for the access reasons. Yeah.
And perhaps put it in a word as in particular for access, because there may be other things that get flagged up on the day. Councillor McComb.
That's just the very point I was going to make. There are other matters which may be pertinent as well as access. The SUDS was mentioned, ground contamination was mentioned. Underground mine working has been mentioned in the report.
I think what I'll do is I'll just keep it simple as a site visit, because there are numerous things that might come up and members just can bear in mind the points that have been raised at the meeting when they go on the site visit.
I'll just get David to help us out here.
Yes, I mean, there is guidance at the front of your agenda papers about site visits, and all it actually says is site visits should only normally occur where an elected member of Dumfries and Galloway Council requests a site visit, giving clear and relevant reasons for doing so at the committee meeting, and the majority of the committee said this. So I don't think it's necessary to give all eventualities, we've heard issues of access, and just it's open to members to see whatever's on site.
Okay, members, we'll go to the vote.
Okay. Councillor Campbell.
Motion.
Councillor Blake.
Motion.
Councillor Doogie Campbell is not here. Councillor Crothers.
Motion.
Councillor Fairbairn.
Motion.
Councillor Giusti.
Motion.
Councillor Hislop. Councillor James. Councillor Lever.
Motion.
Councillor Maitland.
Motion.
Councillor Martin.
Motion.
Councillor McComb.
Motion.
Councillor McKee. Councillor Murray.
Motion.
And I can confirm that the motion carries with 11 votes to 2, and therefore, in relation to this item, members will go on a site visit.
Ivor.
Chair, it has been indicated that there is a risk of asbestos being there. Will members be supplied with the suitable suits to make sure that we don't have anything, or can we guarantee it's a wet day so that nothing's in the air?
I can't answer that. We'll do a risk assessment beforehand. How's that, Ivor? Okay, if there's no other business, thank you, everyone.
Chair, are we taking the last item on the agenda? Field